Welcome to the January 17th council meeting. We did have a workshop prior to the meeting, so we adjourned for a little bit, and now we're back in. I would like to ask Council Member, or Mayor Pro Tem, rather, Karen Comstock to lead us in the flag salute. If you'd please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Our first presentation this evening is going to be quite a large one. It's introduction of Chino Pop Warner Tiny Mites boys football team. First, I'd like to call up all the coaches, assistant coaches, team mom, and team members that are here this evening. Come on up, please. The coaches and team members of the Tiny Mites division proudly represented Chino Pop Warner and the city of Chino during the 2022 season. The Tiny Mites division is made up of children 5 to 7 years old. The children were determined, goal-driven, and ready to learn the game of football. The players had a successful season under the Mount Baldy League division, finishing with 7 wins and 0 losses. Unfortunately, during the semifinal game, the team had their first loss against Rancho Cucamonga. The players did not let this loss slow them down, however, as they continued to win in other local bowl games and even made history as the first Tiny Mites team to complete the regular season undefeated. Let's give them a hand. So what we'd like to do tonight is to recognize the Tiny Mites. First, I'd ask the coaches to please introduce yourselves.
Head coach Chris Wyardi.
My name's Trey. I was the defensive coordinator.
I'm Team Mom Mariella Phillips.
Okay, I'm going to be calling out the team members' names, and if, ladies and gentlemen, if you would come up, please, and stand in line here, because you're going to get a big group photo. There are some members that were not able to join us this evening, but we're going to be calling on their names anyway, and I'll hand you their certificates to give them later. First is Curtis Alvarez. Thank you. Messiah Bennett. Eric Carranza, he isn't here this evening, but we'll get, okay. Jack Castaneda. Missing also are Jacob Duran, Ryder Frederick, and Larian Freeman. Let's give them a hand. Leo Garcia is here with us this evening. Leo. Here he comes. There you go. Congratulations. Rhythm Garcia. There you go. Eli Gutierrez. Eli. Emiliano Navarro. Missing is Caden Herrera and Van Newton. Let's give them a hand. Ezekiel Phillips. Isaiah Blue Quinn. Mateo Ruda was also not able to be with us this evening, but let's give him a hand. James Cisco. Emmanuel Solis. Whoops. Oh my gosh. Jackson Vaca. And missing this evening's Jaden Velarde and Arnold Villa. Then we also have Mason. Oh, he is here. Okay, he he is here, Velarde. Jaden? Jaden, okay. And then we have Mason Yarte. Are you Mason? Now, gentlemen, come all up in front so that everybody can see you. Come up here.
Go, boys, come on.
We're going to get a big picture of all of you. It's like herding cats. Now, Coach, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I know. All right, well, it wasn't that hard to coach them, so hard to get them to line up, but not to coach them. But this season was very unique and very special to all of us. And, you know, when you join football, or at least Chino Pop Warner, I played back in the day, so once you join a family like Chino Pop Warner, I mean, you really do become family. So many friendships are made, and you just meet so many new people. And, you know, there's ups and downs, but, you know, we stuck through it. We stuck together, and, you know, we continued our fight even after being eliminated in the playoffs. Again, it was a very unique year. You're going to hear a lot of these boys' names, you know, such as Jackson Vaca, Mason Wyarty, Messiah Bennett, Alvarez, Curtis Alvarez. I mean, you're going to hear these names. So when you guys do, you guys will be, they're going to make us proud because they represent the city of Chino. And, you know, we're just looking to make you guys, make our community happy, make our city happy, make our family happy. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it was a great season. And like I said, we battled. When we battled and we lost the game against Rancho, it was really tough. You know, we're basically trying to figure out what went wrong, and the boys know that, you know, they didn't give 100%, and so they know that that's why they lost that game. It might be a tough lesson, but you need to teach these boys young, and, you know, luckily they were an awesome group of boys. They wanted to better themselves, and they definitely did that. You know, every single kid on the team got better towards the end of the season. And throughout the season, I mean, they played phenomenal. So thank you guys for your support. Thank you guys for your recognition, and we'll be back next year with a championship. Thank you.
Your other coaches? We also have certificates for the coaches and the team mom, Chris. It's for you, Takari, and Mariela. And then here's the other certificates for the ones that we're missing. Thank you so much. You make us proud. See, this is what makes Chino special. Okay, next presentation is Business of the Month for January. Our Business of the Month for January started as many do, with a good idea and lots of hard work. Our awardees found an old fast food building on Riverside Drive between Central and 7th Street in downtown Chino and transformed this unassuming spot into a local destination. The City Council would like to recognize Riverside Bar and Grill as our January 2023 Business of the Month. Will the representatives, Rodrigo and Alfonso Avila, please join me? And your families. In 1997, the Avila brothers opened Riverside Bar and Grill, a family restaurant known for its fresh, unique, and delicious food served in a friendly and comfortable atmosphere. With menu influences from gastropubs and the owner's Mexican heritage, the grill caters to a wide range of tastes. This Chino landmark has a loyal customer base that owners consider part of their extended family, and they take pride in treating their customers like guests in their own home. Riverside Bar and Grill is a popular place where people feel welcome and comfortable. It's a place to return to with family and friends, like a home away from home. In addition to serving great food, Riverside Grill is known for its generous and community-focused contributions. It supports a variety of charities and nonprofits, including Seroptimist International of the Chino Valley, and programs such as Stepping Up, which supports girls during their promotion from 6th to the 7th grade, and the Brew and Chew event that funds scholarships to Chino High School and Chaffee Community College Chino campus. Riverside Grill also assists in the Pomona Pride Center, which serves the LGBTQ plus youth in 12 cities. The Gavin R. Stevens Foundation, also known as Gavin's Groupies, which raises awareness and provides funding to treat and cure blindness, and the Ayala Girls Booster Club. When available, Riverside Grill purchases locally sourced products such as handcrafted beers, nopales, bread, bagels, tortillas, produce, and gardening services. Riverside Grill prides itself in supporting the arts and advertises with the Chino 7th Street Theater's yearly program. While deciding where to open their restaurant, excuse me, the Avila brothers saw a need in the Chino community for a gathering place like the Grill that served fresh food in a lively atmosphere, a place where families and friends of all sorts gather for a meal and a good time. Please join me in congratulating Riverside Bar and Grill for bringing quality fresh food to Chino and for being selected the January 2023 Business of the Month. We'd like you to accept this plaque as a symbol of our appreciation for a very successful business. And I'd like you to say a few words.
My name is Alonso Avila, my wife Maria, my business partner and brother Rod, and guest. Well, it's been a tough few years, but the grill has managed to stay afloat, even with COVID and the bad economy. But it's been great to be here in Chino Valley.
It's wonderful to be recognized, and I really appreciate this. And just the support of the community has been really extensive. The PD has always been there for us, and the community's been there. So we just celebrated 25 years of business, and this is just an additional just recognition that we have made a difference in this community, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for your support. Well, you have made a huge difference in our community. I mean, you're well known throughout this whole valley. It was interesting because I was at a meeting the other day, and one of the questions was, what's your favorite lunch place? You have no idea how many places or how many people said Riverside Grill. So you're well known throughout the valley. Thank you very much for putting us on the map. And we hope that you're there for another 25 years. Yes. Thank you.
Very much.
You think it's hard, with the little kids herding cats, and then he takes off.
Right?
Get over here for your picture. I know.
The kids are better behaved.
Kids are better behaved. Congratulations
Thank you very
again.
much,
Oh,
Mayor.
you're
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, we do have information in our packet about the state of California's legislative review and update from Gonzalez and Son. Jack Morgan, our assistant city manager, would you please introduce Jason Gonzalez?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. As we enter the 23-24 California State Legislative Session, it is useful for us to look back at the previous legislative year and see what we can expect in 2023. Now, as a reminder to everyone, with the Council's guidance, we will be approaching proposed legislation coming out of Sacramento a bit differently. This year, we will have a Legislative Policy Committee comprised of Mayor Ulloa and Mayor Pro Tem Comstock, whose first meeting is tentatively scheduled for February 22nd, and will help formulate proposed stances on pieces of legislation for the entire City Council's approval, while also engaging the offices of our local representatives. By taking this approach, not only do we hope to be effective in giving Chino a greater voice, but also building collaborative relationships with our state and federal representatives. Now, to help kick off this year's state legislative session, we have Jason Gonzalez from the firm Gonzalez & Son available via Teams to provide an overview on last year and what we can expect in the coming legislative session. So with that, I will hand the report off to Jason.
Well, thank you, Jack, and good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I hope you can hear me clearly. As Jack mentioned, my name's Jason Gonzalez. I'm with the lobbying firm Joey Gonzalez & Son. Our firm has had the pleasure of representing your city for many years. In fact, I look back, it dates back to 2006. So I guess as the old adage goes, time flies when you're having fun. There was no shortage of fun during the 2022 or 2021-22 legislative session. But just in 2022 alone, the legislature introduced 2,353, all I'm sure very much needed new bills. Prior to August 31st, 2022, they sent 1,166 of those bills down to Governor Newsom for his consideration, and the governor signed 997. So as of January 1st, there's just shy of 1,000 new laws on the books here in California. As part of the governor's final action, the governor put out a press release titled Bills, Bills, Bills. And there, as I mentioned, there was no shortage of legislative efforts. But there were 7 priorities on that press release that the governor highlighted: reproductive health care, pay equity, and so forth. But 3 of those priorities did affect or do have a interaction with local agencies. The care court and homelessness being one, more housing faster, which being the other one. And then lastly, catalytic converter theft was one of the priorities that the governor and legislature addressed during the prior session. Looking forward, as we move towards what we hope to be closer to a normal legislative session, the legislature continues to operate under a post-COVID, I'll call it a hybrid model. Testimony is allowed limited in person, and they are still thus far going to be allowing remote testimony via the phone lines or phoning in. So in addition to that, I should note, for those that are used to going to Sacramento and meeting with your legislators in what we used to call the annex, the building that was connected to the rotunda and where the legislative sessions are, the legislature and governor are now working about a block away from the state capitol and what's been called the swing space. So there's also a little bit of a hybrid location. They have their sessions in the rotunda, and then they've moved to the swing space for the old offices, the annex, to be torn down and renovated. So again, looking towards 2020, well, this year's session, the 2023-24 session, we will have the largest class, and we do have now the largest class of new legislators since the passage of Prop 28, which established 12-year legislative terms in either house. The 80 members of the Assembly, 62 are Democrats, 18 are Republicans, and supermajorities as well in the Senate. Of the 40 members of the Senate, 32 Democrats and 8 Republicans. But we have 21 brand new legislators entering 31 new legislators entering the legislature that were sworn in on December 5th. So we have a new class of legislators. I know you're Assemblymember Freddie Rodriguez and Senator Susan Rubio. Your legislators, they're great members. They do great work, and we look forward to working with you, Madam Mayor, and the council and your management team and your legislators going forward. One other quick note, there was a compromise post-November for the existing speaker, Anthony Rendon, to continue to serve as speaker between now and June 30th, so through the upcoming budget process. And then as of July 1st, we will have a new speaker, Robert Rivas from the Central Valley, that will be taking over, which also may trigger and should trigger new committee assignments and a little bit of a shakeup mid-year. So with the new members and the new legislature, there's new challenges. Last year, you may recall, there was a $100 billion unprecedented record budget surplus. This year, the legislature is looking at about a $23 billion deficit. Last week, Governor Newsom, for the first time since taking office in 2019, was forced to propose a budget that included cuts and seeking to address, again, a projected $23 billion deficit. And that's assuming the economy doesn't continue to get worse or the projections don't go down even further. Of the $22 billion, the largest cuts we saw were about $7 billion in proposed cuts to climate change, an additional $2 billion in transportation cuts, and totaling about $3.1 billion in transportation, potential transportation cuts, because there's another $1 billion that have what the governors refer to as triggers, meaning if the revenues improve the forecast, then about $1 billion can be restored. I would just quickly note that the governor did not propose utilizing the nearly $38 billion the state has in reserves in a rainy day fund. And I think that's worth noting because the governor, I think, is looking to really try to tighten things down, recognizing it may not just be a one-time budget challenge or deficit. So we will see a May revise here shortly, and then a June 15th budget adoption. So unlike for many years, we didn't know if there would be a budget on time. As of recent, we do know the budget will be passed by June 15th, and not to be flippant about it, but if it's not passed, they forfeit their pay. And ever since that provision was put into the Constitution, we have had on-time budgets. So again, looking forward, we'll see a continued focus on housing and homelessness. Unfortunately, with housing and homelessness, I think while all levels of government want to address what has been dubbed the housing crisis, unfortunately, the efforts we've seen have been an ongoing trend to circumvent local land use authority. And we'll continue at your direction and the city management's direction to fight off efforts to circumvent your local control. And one other thing I'll note, Jack made mention of a new process. We look forward and thank you for the opportunity to work collaboratively with your management team and the mayor and council. Our role, and dating back to the beginning of our representation of your city, is to work on issues that are Chino focused, things that you wouldn't take to statewide associations. And whether it's issues with the prison, infrastructure, highway relinquishment, we're prepared to work with you at your direction on any and all issues that may be coming before us. The last date I will note is February 17th is the deadline for bills to be introduced. So the 2,000 plus or minus new bills we will see, they're just starting to trickle in, and we'll see the bulk of them in mid-February, and they'll become eligible in mid-March. So with that, I would just again want to thank you for the time. Happy New Year, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. Any questions from council members? Thank you very much for the update, and we're looking forward to future updates.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Jack, anything further?
No, with that update, and as Jason had mentioned, February 17th, that's going to be the deadline for bills to be introduced. And so as those become introduced, that's why we're shooting for mid-February. We'll have a good idea of what we need to be tracking, and we'll bring that to the policy committee, and then that will come back to the council.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
City Manager Linda Reich, do we have any announcements for agenda additions or revisions?
Mayor, we'd like to pull item number 4 from consent and return it to staff.
Okay, thank you for that. Next, under public announcements, the annual Run for Russ Memorial 5K Run and Community Walk. I'd like to give people an early reminder to come out on the annual run on Saturday, February 4th, starting at the corner of Chino Avenue and Central Avenue. Check-in for the event begins at 7 a.m. with a 5K walk starting at 8 a.m. This event honors the life of Chino police officer Russ Miller, who was tragically struck and killed by a drunk driver in the line of duty on February 1st, 2000. Those interested in being part of this outstanding event can register by visiting https://www.runforruss.com. Lastly, our next installment of the Household Hazardous Waste Collection Program will be occurring on Saturday, February 11th from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Public Works Services Yard located at 5050 Schaefer Avenue. This will allow Chino residents to safely dispose of common waste, including electronic waste, which is TVs, printers, laptops, personal computers, things like that, household-generated motor oil and oil filters, antifreeze and gasoline, but these must be stored in sealed containers, automotive and household batteries, pesticides, and fertilizers. For more information, please call 909-334-3266. And we will be, sadly and lastly, adjourning in the memory of Riverside County Sheriff's Deputy Darnell Calhoun, who was killed in the line of duty on Friday, January 13th, while responding to a domestic violence and child custody call just outside Lake Elsinore. This comes as our community honored the life of Riverside County Sheriff Deputy Isaiah Cordero at our last City Council meeting, and reflects a concerning disregard that some have been displaying against law enforcement personnel and their families. Deputy Calhoun was described as a team player, incredibly fun to be around, and a leader in the community policing. Deputy Calhoun was just age 30, and he leaves behind his expecting wife and 2 sons, aged 2 and 4. As we said at our last council meeting, the city of Chino and this council will always support and care for the Chino Police Department and its neighboring law enforcement agencies. Our prayers go out to the Calhoun family during this very difficult time. And for anyone wishing to donate to the Calhoun family, please visit helpahero.com/campaign/deputy-Darnell-Calhoun. Next on our agenda is public comments. This is the time and the place for the general public to address the council on items that are not elsewhere on the agenda. We will first go through our written request to speak, and then I'll open it up to anyone else. First written request to speak is Chaplain Henry Aguilar, Jr. He's from the Chino Valley Fire Department. He's going to lead us in an invocation, and I invite all those who would like to join us to please stand.
Good evening, everyone. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, we come before you in Jesus' name. And Father God, we thank you for the honor and privilege to come before your throne, Lord. Father, I ask that your Spirit would be here in this room, Father God. Bless our council meeting, Father. Bless our mayor, our council members, Father, and our city employees, Father God. Lord, as mentioned, we lift up our first responders, Father, the fire and police, Lord, and I ask that you have your hands upon them and their families when they're on duty, Lord. And Father God, I ask that you would continue to bless the items on the agenda as they're being brought up forward, Lord. So, Father, we love you, we praise you, and it is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Henry. Next written request to speak is Elizabeth Scratt from the Chino Basin Water Conservation District.
Good evening, Mayor Ulloa, City Manager Reich, and members of the council. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. My name is Elizabeth Skurzat. I'm the General Manager of the Chino Basin Water Conservation District. We have been protecting and replenishing our regional groundwater here in the Chino Basin since 1949. And I'm here today to invite you to our Basin Tour program, which is something that we are doing new this last couple of years. If we've learned anything in the past 2 weeks of back-to-back rainstorms after years of drought, it's that it's absolutely critical that we capture every single drop of rain that we possibly can. And our community has been gifted with a water conservation district that our forefathers had the foresight to create in 1949. There are only 15 of them in the state of California, and our primary duty is to capture water and store it for later use. In our case, in the aquifer beneath our feet, which is called the Chino Groundwater Basin. On February 16th, we will be giving a behind-the-scenes tour of our system of infiltration basins, which follows the San Antonio Creek Channel from the headwaters at Mount Baldy all the way down to the Prado wetlands. It is a half-day tour. Oh, how does this work? Ms. Gonzaga? Oh, there we go. It is a half-day tour. You'll meet at the WaterWise Community Center, which is the district's headquarters in Montclair. And after a brief and entertaining presentation, you'll board the bus and go all the way up to the base of Mount Baldy, where we will see the San Antonio Creek in its natural habitat. And then we will follow the creek channel all the way down, where we'll visit 3 of our infiltration basins. And these basins collect stormwater, they collect imported water from Northern California, and then also recycled water from our own community that all go back into the aquifer and provide about half the drinking water for the communities that we serve. So this is, oh, there we go. This is a really fun and unique opportunity to learn about how we guard against drought. Essentially, the Chino Groundwater Basin is our piggy bank, where we store water when it rains for a sunny day. And there is more information on the invitations that we will leave with you today. Elected officials, staff of the city, and any community leaders or community members that are interested or feel you would feel would benefit from this information are more than welcome to join us. So we have RSVP information here, and we really look forward to seeing you and hope you join us. Thank you so much.
Website?
Yes.
Would you like to say what your website is?
Yes. It's www.cbwcd.org. That's Chino Basin Water Conservation District.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next written request to speak is Aaron Kelleher from our own Chino Police Department.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. As you know, my name is Aaron Kelleher. I'm our board member for our COPS PAC, which is our political action committee representing both the Chino Police Officers Association and the Chino Police Management Association. I just wanted to take a second tonight to thank, on behalf of our 118 members, the City Council for the swift and decisive action they took to adjust our contract to keep us competitive. We were losing officers to other agencies when staff and council learned of this. They took swift and decisive action to ensure that we remain competitive and are able to recruit and retain those high-quality employees. As you mentioned tonight, it's hard right now to get people into law enforcement. There's a big anti-law enforcement sentiment out there. We see it manifesting in attacks on law enforcement. But one thing that's never changed has been this council's support for public safety. It has been unwavering, and whenever we need help, you guys are there for us, and we want to make sure that we acknowledge that and thank you on behalf of our membership for fixing that issue. I also want to take a second to acknowledge two other people who don't like to be in the limelight a lot, but Dr. Linda Reich and our Director of Human Resources, Jerry Kingsland, for the collaborative and solutions-based approach they took to fixing this issue. It was mid-contract, and this didn't have to happen, but everybody in the city, from city staff to our council, knew it was an issue that needed to be fixed, and they came together, worked with our associations, and came up with an excellent package which keeps us exactly where we need to be, competitive. We have tremendous police officers here in our city. They're dedicated. You will be hard to find more community-oriented police officers anywhere. I've had the privilege of teaching law enforcement officers throughout this country, from the coast in Jersey to the coast in Oregon, and it's great to be able to get around the country and see what other departments are doing. And it gives me a chance to really brag about all the great things that we're doing here. And people always ask, hey, how are you guys doing that? How are you guys doing the things that we're doing at the police department? And I says, well, it's two things. One, we have tremendous support from our city council and from our community. And two, you have to have people who are dedicated. and your guys' actions to fix that contract and help us keep those dedicated people. Our number one biggest resource is the people that we have here. And thank you from the bottom of our hearts for the actions that you guys took to correct that. And we really look forward to continuing to work with you to make Chino an excellent place to live, work, and play. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron, for being here this evening. This community's support for our PD is absolutely amazing, and I'm always so proud of it. You don't hear about the horrible things happening here that sadly are happening in other communities, because I think there is such a partnership between our community and our PD, and it's really appreciated. Next, we have a request to speak from Sonia Shaw, our new school board president. Sonia?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Madam Mayor, and to each of our city council members. Although many familiar faces, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Sonia Shaw. I have been newly elected to the Chino Valley Unified School Board, and it's an honor to announce that I am the liaison between the school district and the city of Chino. I'm truly excited to work alongside such a great group. Your commitment to our community is inspiring. Thank you for all that you guys do. Chino is where I was born and raised, and where my husband and I decided to raise our family. And I'm so proud of all of our city's continuous accomplishments, and it wouldn't be that way if it wasn't for your guys' leadership. I do want to mention that this Thursday at our board meeting, we are planning on naming the new school being built at the preserves. You guys did a lot of hard work to get that school going. So if you guys or anybody in the community has any ideas on names, please reach out to us. We have a few names that were inputted, but we would love to get more community involvement on that. As you probably know, that's going to be a difficult decision to name a brand new school in our community. My family and I want to thank our first responders, our fire department, our police. You guys are amazing, and you guys are always in our prayers. Again, thank you very much. And if you guys need anything, please never hesitate to reach out to me, as I would love to make sure that we have a great friendship, and we're also linked arms to make sure our community is served the way that it needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Sonia. Next, we have our Southern California Gas customer representative, Leah Peterson, here this evening. Leah?
Good evening, council members and mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. As you know, and you have all received your gas bill. I get one too. So that being said, I completely understand the gasps behind me. Our natural gas is a commodity that Southern California Gas Company purchases out on the open market. And the commodity price of natural gas has gone up at least 3 times. As high as what you would normally see in previous years. Part of that is, as I said, we purchase it out on the open market. We do not mark up natural gas prices. It is something that we purchase, and we are in competition for other public utilities throughout the country, as well as currently the United States is working very hard to support other nations in the world. And those companies are taking their natural gas supplies and selling them out elsewhere. So we have to purchase our natural gas on the open market. That has, amongst other things, has also increased the costs. And what I'm here tonight is to be able to let you know that if you can go to our SoCalGas.com website, there are a number of ways. Our energy efficiency programs are available, as well as customer assistance programs. And in particular, for low-income community members, they can take a look at our different programs, and if they are qualify, they can get their natural gas bill lowered by 20%. This is extremely helpful for citizens, senior citizens who are on fixed incomes. We have bill pay programs where you can get your bill averaged throughout the year, so that if you are on a program that in the summertime when your bill is low and your wintertime is high, it can be averaged throughout the year for you and makes it easier to deal with. If you are not have access to a computer, you can call our 800 number, 427-2200, and para las personas en español, 800 427 2200. Otra vez is 800 427 2200. And that 800 number will direct you to whether you speak different languages, and then that way you can also, in the different language that you speak, gain additional information. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak before you. I have issued to the city council members this information. We also have gas assistance funds available, so if you do need additional information, please reach out to me, and I'd be happy to chat with you or send you more information. Thank you very much.
Leah, thank you for being here this evening. We did receive our gas bill last week, and I thought my husband was going to fall off the chair because it literally was 5 times what it normally was. And it's only the 2 of us, so that was quite a shock.
There was only me and a cat, so mine was 3 times as high, so I get it.
Now, are you guys going to put anybody in legislation to fight these proposals of banning gas stoves and stuff like that the legislation is kind of talking about right now?
We have people who work in Washington, D.C., and this is coming out of Washington, D.C., and they are in many, many talks with people in D.C. about this and what this means. I can tell you this. In Downey, we have what's called the Energy Resource Center, and it has food serviceability services and training opportunities. And we train and work with a lot of the food industry, catering, bakers, restaurants. It's all free. They can go there and learn about different food safety and et cetera. And we always ask them, which do you prefer to cook on? Do you prefer electric or gas? And it is a resounding gas. Yes. The other thing, in your ethnic communities, in the Chinese community, in the Indian community, they have told us repeatedly they cannot cook if they do not have natural gas. That is their style of cooking. So where this will go, I don't know. I can tell you that people are looking at it very closely.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Leah.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next written request to speak is Melissa Campani from Supervisor Hagman's office.
Well, good evening and Happy New Year. Mayor Ulloa, Vice Mayor, I said that completely wrong. Mayor Pro Tem Comstock, council members, staff, and of course, community members. Supervisor Hagman did ask me to come tonight and announce that he has a couple of programs going and he's looking for community input. And we are offering through the 4th District of San Bernardino County a Business of the Quarter Award. And it's a very nice award, and the supervisor will go in and he has a special certificate, and the county comes in and they will do a video of your business and your accomplishments. So it's very nice to have, and then those are played on social media. So we found that we have a lot of good response with that. But we are hoping for your input and the community's input for nominees. We'd like to hear about their business and why people are happy with them, and their community involvement is also very, very important. So that is very easy to find on Supervisor Hagman's website. You can always go to sbcounty.gov, and from there find Supervisor Hagman's page, and then there will be a nomination form from his page there. So remember, this is for the 4th District, which would be Chino, Chino Hills, Ontario, Montclair, and just a portion of Upland. So we have to make sure that they are located within our district. And so that is something we are really hoping to get your help on. And I did want to just make a quick announcement about the point-in-time count. That's a very important day coming up for cities to receive information about what's going on in their communities. Now, I know here in the city of Chino, the staff is accounted for, and they will be conducting their own search. However, the cities of Ontario and Upland, our neighbors, are looking for volunteers It's very easy. You can go online, and they're going to have volunteer training, which will be virtual this year. And so that is coming up the 17th, 18th, and the 23rd, I believe would be the last one. And they assist you with which questions to ask. There's an app to help people who are volunteering, looking for homeless individuals to count and help. And like I said, this is something that is helpful to the cities to know how many homeless people they have. All of our cities are participating with the event. The actual count will be conducted on January the 26th from 6 to 10 a.m. So if you have time and are interested and would like to become involved, like I say, the City of Ontario and Upland are looking for volunteers for that operation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, those are the only written requests to speak that I have on items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone else in the audience that has anything they would like to discuss with the council that is not somewhere else on the agenda? Yes, ma'am. You want to come forward and give us your name?
Good evening. My name is Daphne Lezo. I just wanted to introduce myself to all of you. I am the new field representative for Assemblymember Freddie Rodriguez. So I wanted to introduce myself to you all and the community. So if you need any assistance, please feel free to contact our office. And I will be representing Chino. So if anything, please contact me. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming, Daphne.
Thank you.
And if you do have a card or something, maybe you could leave it with our city clerk. Anyone else in the audience have anything to address the council with that's not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Item number 4 has been sent back to staff for further consideration. So do any council members want any items 1, 2, 3, or 5 pulled? If not, then I would entertain a motion and a second for approval. It's a motion from Councilman Lucio, second from Councilman Flores. Councilperson Burton. Okay, and the item passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is under public hearings. Prior to a vote of the council, we will be asking for members of the audience to provide us with comments. I do have several written requests to speak on item number 6, and we will ask for those first. Item number 6 is the establishment of a residential parking permit area within the Parkside Village community. This item is to conduct a public hearing regarding the establishment of permit parking. And I'd like to first call the public hearing or declare the public hearing open and ask for a staff report from Dennis Rawls, our city traffic engineer.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight before you is consideration of the approval of a resolution to establish residential permit parking within the Parkside Village community. That community is located off of Yorba Avenue in between Walnut and Riverside Drive, about halfway on the east side. The community has a single entrance on Doheny Drive and includes the streets of Oceanside, San Clemente, San Simeon, and Cardiff. As you explained earlier in the intro, we are here tonight to conduct a public hearing to consider that resolution and hear from the public on that item before action's taken. I wanted to give a quick second to kind of explain how we got here for the public's knowledge. We've been working with the Parkside Village community for about 2 years with staff on various quality of life concerns, ranging from 72-hour vehicle parking violations, vehicle abandonment, but of concern specifically is a concentration of an abundance of on-street parking on the public streets inside the community near the entrance that have caused a concern for the residents that brought to our attention. Since that time, staff has worked diligently to try to help to solve this issue. We've modified parking on-street on Yorba Avenue to allow for additional on-street parking away from the community. It is thought that a lot of this parking comes from the adjacent apartment complexes. Those are highlighted on your slide in yellow. And really we're here tonight because all those efforts still have the issue present. Included in the staff report tonight is not only the staff report from the last December meeting for for everyone's review, but also a memo by myself that explains the study that was conducted in concurrence with our municipal code, chapter 10.29, I believe, that goes through and looks at all the findings that need to be made and the evidence that can support preferential parking. With that, the staff has found that sufficient evidence exists for the City Council to consider that. That was considered back, like I said, in December at our last meeting. And at that time, the council gave direction to staff to notice this public hearing. Notice was published in the Chino Champion twice, on December 31st and January 7th, as well as signs posted at the site. Those signs were installed on January 4th. And notices were mailed to all of the surrounding areas, specifically the areas highlighted in the map here. Those notices were mailed out on January 5th. With that, just wanted to say that the permit parking here, I think we explained before in previous council meetings, this is going to be a new use for this program, for this type of scenario. All of our previous permit parking issues, parking areas established, involve school-related traffic. This would be something where we're really taking a look at how residents from a neighboring development are impacting other residents. And so I just wanted to make that comment before we proceed. Also, before I conclude my comments, just want to let you know, and I think you have that in front of you, we received 2 emails concerning this project. Both were, I think, could be categorized as not in support of the permit parking. I also want to let you know that I've been in contact with residents of Doheny Court. That's the cul-de-sac on the west side of Yorba. That's one of the areas highlighted in blue. They are looking to gather themselves and potentially ask for the same thing should this proceed tonight. So just want to make that note. If approved today, the timeline set forth would be for us to allow us about 30 days to order and install permit parking signs in the neighborhood. Those locations have already been identified, and enforcement can begin after signs were installed. The consideration tonight, after consultation with the residents as well as with staff, is to sign the area for overnight parking restrictions only. So that would be limited from 5 p.m. to 6 a.m. That time frame was picked specifically with talking with the community as well as discussing that with our law enforcement personnel to help with enforcement. And I also wanted to point out that service vehicles and accessible parking are exempt from this by vehicle code. And with that, that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Dennis, prior to our asking you questions, I have quite a stack of requests to speak this evening on this item. So I would please ask the audience be considerate of each other. If you're here and supportive of someone who is speaking, but not necessarily have to say the same thing that's already been said, I would ask after the person speaks, those that are in favor of what they have said, you could raise your hand. So I ask you not to repeat each other, just out of consideration for each other, okay? So our first written request to speak is Byron Aceto.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. Obviously, and thank you again for continuing to support and holding this public hearing to hear our issue that we've been having in the Parkside Village community. And I want to thank Mr. Rawls for his report, especially on the report that he provided at the last city council meeting. I think it clearly spelled out that a problem exists in this area and that something needs to be done to address it. So I want to thank you, Mr. Rawls, for that report. So now that we've in the city has identified that a problem does exist in this area and some type of solution does need to be brought forward to resolve this issue. So what do we do going forward, right? So after several attempts by the city to try and resolve the issue, the community, Parkside Village Association, has reached out to the city in asking for permitted parking in our neighborhood. We were advised that we would need to conduct a community vote, which we did. We had our management company conduct a vote at considerable cost to our community. That vote, we sent out ballots, That vote passed, I believe, on the first day. We obtained the number of votes to proceed with permitted parking. And just to amend, when we sent out the ballots, Mr. Rawls, to our community, the times on the permitted parking was from 12 a.m. to 7 a.m. That was what the community, that was on the ballot that the community voted for. So that's what we have already approved. So, like I said, you've heard several, lots of information from Mr. Rawls about the issue. I don't want to steal a lot of my neighbors' thunder here. I know they have lots of issues they would like to bring up. I had my chance at the last city council meeting where I was able to, give some personal experiences of what it's like to live on the street on San Simeon there. I would like to just, state one thing, that when I moved in the community, when I bought my home there in 1999, I bought a home in a private community on a next to a private park, and I paid for that, and I continue to pay for it, and my neighbors and I continue to pay for that with our dues every month, and we pay for that. It's a luxury. We pay for that luxury to live in a private community with a private park. Over the years, that has changed. In the last the first 20 years, that's what it was. The last 4 years or so, that has changed. Now if you live on San Simeon or Doheny, instead of looking at your window and seeing a nice private park, you see a parking lot, right? And that's the reality of how we live now. Maneuvering cars every day to try and accommodate parking on the street. So obviously, I live in the Parkside Village Homeowners Association area. I've been a board member there for a couple of years now, and I'm in favor of moving forward with these parking permits, largely because the attempts in the past have not been fruitful. So I encourage you, I urge you to please vote yes and allow the community to proceed with what we've already voted on doing, which is to have permitted parking in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Those that are in favor those that are in supportive of his comments, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you very much. Next written request to speak, Allison Myers.
Is this the right microphone?
The one on your left.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for letting us have the opportunity to come and talk to you tonight. And as you make decisions about this parking permit, I'd like to share some of my experiences and I think some of the other people's experiences here. You already have heard a lot of it. I understand that we have bumper-to-bumper parking along Doheny every night, and I know the original report that was given to you said it looked like it was getting better, but I can tell you right now it's not getting better. It's never, if you live there 24/7, you see these cars. I walk my dogs daily, and not only is it just the cars being there, but it's the trash, and it's the things that they leave all over the ground of the park and all around the whole community. And it's not just normal trash, it's unmentionable things that people use, and it's booze bottles and things like that I've lived in our community since 1978, which is 44 years. It'll be 45 years this year. And this has just been going on these last 4 or 5 years since these cars have been coming in from the apartment buildings. The vandalism in the park has escalated, and we don't have any recourse to know where that's coming from, but it's escalated in that same time period that we've had these cars parking there. We've actually had someone who brought in cars from a car dealership and sold cars from the community right there. It was just mind-boggling to see these cars all lined up there, and then somebody standing there with paperwork talking to people, And I will say this too, that we have been working with the police department. All of us have called the police on a car that's been there for more than 72 hours, and those kind of things. And the police has been very nice and very good to us, but they can't always get there in time to take care of the problem that's happening. When there's kids parked out there and they're smoking marijuana and I'm walking my dog by and I can smell it, you just can't get somebody there quick enough to reprimand them, and ask them to move on their way or whatever we need to do, with them. I'm an older lady. I'm not going to approach these people and take my chances there. So, although I'm tempted at times, the cars on our driveways have been broken into more frequently in the last 4 to 5 years. So it's just one thing after the other. There's just so many things that have been going on, and we have been working with the police department. They've been very good to us. We've talked to the apartment complex, and they are no help. They don't want to have anything to do with it. They just keep telling their people, go park over there. It's public parking. And so that's what's brought us to this point where we feel we need the permitted parking. And well, I'd like to thank Dennis for his help with us too. He's been very helpful with getting all of this together and finally getting us here, because he's been working with us for 2 years, but we've been working on it for the last 4 to 5 years. So it's been a long process for us, and thank you for finally hearing what our problems are. And if you have any questions for anything I've said, I'm happy to answer that.
Thank you, Allison. Raise your hands, please, if you're in favor of what you just heard. Okay, thank you. Next, Denise Wyrick.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you so much for hearing Parkside Village homeowners. We are at your mercy tonight. And because we want our community back, we want the parking that we had. I'm an emotional person. I've been living in Parkside Village for 25 plus years. And when I moved there, it was a clean, quiet neighborhood. And when I came home from work or out to dinner, I had a place to park. Now, not so much. And it's an inconvenience having to find a place to park. So we just at your mercy. Everything has been said, and we just need you guys to hopefully vote to give us our community back as far as the parking is concerned. Because we're homeowners, and it's a private community. In this private community, we pay dues. And in those dues, we pay for the space that we have, but we don't have the space because there's people that are outside that are coming in that's taking that space. So we're at your mercy tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And again, if you're in favor. Thank you. Angel Medina, or Medina, I think it is.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for listening to us. My name is Angel, and I've been a resident since 2002. What caught my eye to buy a house in Chino was the private park. My house sits right in front of it. And I see what's going on day in, day out, where people park across the street. Like they say, they smoke weed, drink beer, leave their mess. And my wife and I go out there and pick up their mess. I don't think that we should be doing that. That we just want our park back. I hope you consider to vote this and give us a yes on this. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And I assume the same people are in favor. Joe Reynolds.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council.
and thank you very much for listening to our concerns. I will ditto everything that everybody else has said, and I would like to add a few things. Many of us, in fact, probably all of us, has had to leave our 3 trash cans, our big giant trash cans, out on our curbs to literally hold that spot for our own home so that nobody will park there. People have actually taken my trash cans, put them up on the sidewalk, and just park there anyway. So that's one thing. We have people parking in the ADA, I think I'm saying this right, in the part of the curb where it goes up for wheelchairs. They literally park on that curb. We have people that are handicapped in our neighborhood. We have a gentleman that has a wheelchair. If he needed to get up on the sidewalk, he could not. He couldn't. He simply could not. I've had cars parked partially in the entrance of my driveway. Now, does it block me in? No. However, they don't belong there, but they feel entitled to be there. And that's basically what I have to say, and I've seen people work on cars in the driveways. I mean, not in the driveways, I apologize. In the streets. They don't belong there. The park is a mess. I've been there 30 years, and along with my other neighbors, I moved there. We bought a home there because we were going to raise a family. In my opinion, I kind of had the prime property, I felt, because I was right there at the park. And now I'm disgusted that I'm at the park. The trash, the noise, the cars, it's chaos at times. My community, our community is no longer ours. So please, we implore you to please look at all of our concerns and give us a yes. Thank you.
Sherry Melanson.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council, and Dennis, nice to see your face. I live on Doheny Court, so I live on the other side of the community. When I'm hearing everybody talk about the problems that they're having, it's the same problems that we're having. Although we don't have a park that it happens in front of our house, because that's the only parking that's available. Our neighborhood has talked, and all of our neighbors on our street are in agreement that if you pass this tonight for Parkside Village, that we also will want the same thing, because we're already impacted. We have the problems with the trash. We have problems with people leaving their cars there for days. Sometimes the cars are not currently registered. I mean, there's just a whole gamut of problems. And the parking beyond the stop sign, like the last woman had said, blocking the ramps, they will park beyond the stop sign, so you can't see if somebody's coming off the sidewalk, nor can somebody, if they are in a wheelchair, access that. So we're having the same problems that they're having. I'm just hoping that if you pass it for them, that you will extend the same courtesy to Doheny Court, because we're suffering too. My husband and I have we bought our home there in 1985, July of 85. The traffic problem, I noticed in 2008 when we had the housing problem, we then saw cars parked on both sides of Yorba. Before it was only on the west side. Then it started to have parking on the east side. Then, about a year and a half ago, it was just like unbearable. Like, people were just desperate for parking and doing things like parking illegally. So something changed with that apartment complex a year and a half to 2 years ago. The problem has never been as bad as what it is right now. And I don't know what the solution is, but the residents are having a problem with the apartment complex not having enough parking for their tenants. And the tenants, we also have trash left on our street. that has to be cleaned up. So they're not being good stewards of the community that they're living in. And it's the homeowners that are having to pick up the slack by cleaning up after these people because we care about our homes. This is where we live. We want it to look nice. So Doheny Court is having the same problem that Parkside Village is, so.
Better hear from the west side of Yorba. Okay. Chris Alvarez?
Good evening. I live on the 13,000 block of San Simeon. I don't want to repeat what other people are saying because you're hearing the same thing, and I ditto all of that. But I can say 3 incidents that are fact in my experiences. But before I say that, if you want to see what a community looks like on trash day, come to our community every day, because every day is trash day there. All you see is just a street full of trash cans during the day, hoping that at night when these people come to their homes, which I know are in both apartments, just adjacent to the railroad track on Yorba. And I've met a lot of them, so I know when the problem started. I've talked to them, and the problem started, when COVID started. Unfortunately, a lot of people lost their jobs, and in an apartment, a lot of people they lost their jobs, so they had to move in with their parents or they had to move in with family. And I know the apartment buildings and I hear this from the residents, they allow them to have maybe 2 spaces. So I see why they're coming. So there's some people that are nice, they park there, but unfortunately, the majority are not. I know there's been 3 service calls in the past 6 months to Chino PD. One of them was somebody that was just parked there all the time and sitting in their car. And I know that when Chino PD came out, they took that person into custody. He maybe had warrants. I don't know why they took him into custody. I didn't ask. But you see these people every day. So you see them when you're driving away, and you see the certain cars that are parked in front of your house, and you see them pull into both apartments. So you know where they're coming from. The second incident, I was with my granddaughters. I live right across the street from the park. I was walking to the park, and I almost stepped on what I thought to be human feces. And I look, and it's right next to a passenger seat of a vehicle. So I'm knocking on the window, because the person looks like they're dead. So I don't know what's going on. They're just not responding. So I get on my cell phone, I call Chino PD. Chino PD comes out. Chino PD's there for, I want to say, a good 5 to 10 minutes. They couldn't get the person to wake up. They were just about getting ready to break the window to find out what's going on and see if she's okay. And I guess they ran the plate, and it ended up being a resident at the apartment. That person came over. Turns out one of their friends spent the night, got drunk the night before and fell asleep in the car, and decided to go to the restroom right there on the sidewalk on our way to the park. So that's 2 incidents. It's getting worse and worse every day. I feel like the baby of the bunch because I've only been there 10 years. But it's been bad the last 2 years. So, I'm just really urging and encouraging that you vote yes on the parking permit. Thank you.
Stephanie Comstock.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council teams. I haven't lived in the neighborhood as long as everybody else has, and I don't want to repeat anything that anyone has said, but one of my main issues is I host a lot, and I notice my neighbors like to host too, Christmas, birthday parties, and when our guests come over, there's nowhere for our guests to park. We have to go outside of our neighborhood for them to park, and it shouldn't be fair for us when we're trying to have fun with our family and see them, for them to have to park so far. And a few of my family members, they have newborn babies, and they have to carry it all the way because they parked in Yorba or wherever they could find. And I just don't see how that's fair to us. Since we live there, we should have first availability for the parking. There's been a few incidents where people have came and they're loitering outside the house, they're drinking and leaving the trash on the sidewalk, and my kids have actually picked it up, and I had to smack it out of their hands because it's not something a child should be touching. And that's all I want to bring to your guys' attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Martha Araquin? I don't know if I pronounced that right.
Good evening. I'm supporting my neighbors, and I echo their sentiments. I also want to indicate that during the last couple of years, my husband's vehicle has been broken into, and thousands of dollars of equipment have been stolen. Not going to say that that is the problem that is taking place now is contributed to the fact that that happened, but crime has increased. Also, too, I've noticed that when the street sweeper comes, because they can't get to the curb, they're just sweeping in the middle of the street. So that's where our money is going, just to sweep in the center of the street. The streets are not being swept because of the fact that there's so many vehicles parked. Aside from everything else that my neighbors have already shared, I just wanted to express my sincere plea to you to please take into consideration everything that we have shared with you. And there's been, several considerations for me to move. I've been a resident there for about almost 30 years, and it's just so unfair that I would have to think of even moving from Chino, because I love Chino. And if it doesn't pass, which I hope it does, then we will take the means of moving. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Paul Morales?
Hi, and thank you, Mayor and everybody else. I'm nervous. I would just like to point out one thing. When you see all these junk cars or abandoned cars or just all these cars in your neighborhood, it really affects your property value. People come in and maybe they want to buy and look at the neighborhood and they see cars all over the place. So that's just the one point I want to bring up, and I hope you guys pass the measure or whatever else it is, because, anyway, thank you. Like I said, nervous.
That's okay. 100 years ago, I remember my first time coming to the council meeting, I about died. It was so nerve-wracking, so I understand. Patrick Butler.
Thank you, everybody, for giving us the time here. It's all ditto at this point, pretty much, but I just like one instance that I have. I leave early in the morning to go to work. My front bedroom window is about where your back wall is, and the curb is about right here. Somebody was spending their special time with their special someone. When I'm on my way out the door, then they had left the aftermath on my sidewalk. So then I'm having to leave my family to go to work because I'm on a timeline, and I'm having to deal with that at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. That's not cool. I've been in my yard, working in my yard, and I see the same people come from the apartments. They have somebody come pick them up. They do a U-turn in front of my house and pick up whoever they're picking up, and they'll go, and they do that continuously all day and all night. It's just a pattern. It's the same people. I've had to have tow trucks not drop cars behind the tennis courts because they'll bring people's wrecked cars in. They live in the apartments and drop the cars there because the apartments won't let them put a damaged car in the apartment buildings. So they have them bring them there. And I'm like, no, you tow that out of here. And thanks to Chino PD, their traffic enforcement officer is pretty prompt about coming out when I've called. And the tow truck driver usually knows I've called, and he'll hook up and leave. But this is something I shouldn't have to do. But I greatly appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ward Webster.
Good evening, Mayor, council members.
Again, I'm just in full support of everything the prior speakers have mentioned. I'm experiencing the same things. There's one additional instance that I don't believe has been mentioned yet. A few years ago, somebody was actually living in their van on the street there on San Clemente for several days until they were forced to move out. So again, thank you for hearing our issues. I support my community and urge you to vote yes on this parking permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Gloria Castillo.
Hello, council. Hello. I am just going to give you a quick list. I know there might be some things that are repeated, but I promise you, I just want you to just listen. If you were living there, what you would have to go through. I promise to try to be as quick as possible. Just bear with me. I've been living in Chino since 1980 in that community, and I've paid about $52,000 in association fees, which, like my other neighbors have said, we thought that this was a private community. And so just a quick rundown. My family doesn't have space for parking at times. Cars are parked extended 2 to 3 days in front of my home. Police, I see police or parking attendants coming to mark the tires. I know there have been recent Cadillac converters stolen. Before we never really, I could tell you, I've been there for so long, never had that many police patrolling or police incidents. Also a lot of cars that have been broken into lately. It's actually been a good 3-year problem, like the other gentleman said. Yes, it's hard to look and see if cars are, when we're turning, it's dangerous because the visibility is bad. The community looks ugly. It's like, yeah, trash cans all over 24/7. And before we used to get cited if we had our trash cans out for more than a day or so. And now, you know, you can't even enforce the association rule because we have to leave our trash cans out. I know that's been said already. I just wanted to reiterate that part. I pay for street cleaning, but my street never gets cleaned, like they said. More broken glasses in the entrance and the exit of the streets. I always see more glass. Sometimes I've been wanting to go out there and just clean everything up so that my tire doesn't get flat. I see more police patrolling. Sometimes I don't know why. I'm hearing now why. It definitely brings in more crime. Visibility, like I said, is bad. I do see. I wonder if it's approved, if you'll be able to have true, consistent parking officers enforcing it. I know we have signs that said that our park is private, but it's never really been enforced. But that's because I guess we have to be present in front of whoever comes in that shouldn't be there. In order for an officer to get them out or give a citation, my body would have to be there with my ID to show that I live there, which would then compromise my safety because then they'd know who I am or where I live. So that concerns me. I just hope that there would be consistent parking officers to enforce. There is a lot of parking on Yorba Avenue that I'm starting to see more cars parked on there. Yorba past the train tracks going towards Chino Avenue. I'm starting to see more cars there. I don't know if that's because some of your parking officers have come around more. I'm not sure what's happening there, but it's not like there's not parking on Yorba Avenue. There is. Maybe there's something you can work with the apartment owners to enforce that with the renters and encourage the parking there, and maybe work with the apartment owners to if it gets approved, to encourage them to park out there and kind of give them the warning that there's going to be some citations given if you park in Parkside Village, and having them help us to spread the word that that's a private area. biggest thing for me is my home depreciating. And, you know, it's not fair, you know, if I do want to move out, and there's no one's going to want to buy there when they see like a parking lot and trash cans everywhere. And last, I would just want to say, if this is not approved, will we have the right or a process to appeal? Because we will. I don't mean to, it's not a threat, I'm just saying, you know, we're an active community, as you can see. We've taken our time to be here, and I just want this to be approved, to be fruitful. And I'll end on a positive note. I just want to thank you all. It's the first time I come to a meeting, and just hearing and learning about my community, even with the other speakers that were here that were not parking related. You guys are amazing. The city's amazing. I know I've seen where made the 100 best cities to live in, and I think, is it recently that one of the 10 fastest growing cities?
10 boom towns, one of the top 10 boom towns.
One of the 10 booming, in the county or the state or?
United States.
Woohoo! Yeah, but I do want to recognize your hard work, and I voted for you again and again and again, and I get to meet you, and all of you, the rest of you. Thank you. You are amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last written request to speak, Miguel Angel.
Good afternoon. Hey, I don't speak good English, but I'm going to talk in Spanish. ¿Es okay? Sí,
okay.
Estoy de acuerdo con ellos. Tenemos ese problema para el
Mayor,
estacionamiento.
would you like us to have someone translate that for you?
Do we have somebody?
Anyone? Okay.
Okay.
Sí. I'm
Oh, my goodness.
Dígales que tenemos ese problema. Yo vivo al entrar en la segunda casa, mano izquierda, y toda la noche es un tráfico que con música no dejan dormir. Si por algo salgo tengo que ir como Stereo Brothers, muevo un carro y en 5 minutos ya está invadido el estacionamiento otra vez enfrente de mi casa.
Okay.
Y es un problema de todos los días. Me levanto y en las esquinas está tapado, como dijeron ellos. Está tapado para los de silla de ruedas.
He has to take a break.
What was that?
He has to take a break so we
I
can know what he's
thank
saying.
you. Okay, Miguel, yeah.
Translate. I could translate.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So what he said was, when he leaves his house and goes to the store like Stater Brothers, within 5 minutes somebody comes and takes his parking spot.
Okay.
He also wanted to reiterate that the people do block the disability ramps so that they don't have access to it, just like the previous people had said.
Okay.
Yo vivo al entrar a la comunidad.
He lives in the front of the community as you enter the community.
Y toda la noche es una de llevar carros, cambio de carros, llegan y dejan un carro, llegan otros.
He says all
Está
night long,
invadido.
people are coming, dropping off cars, taking cars, dropping off cars and taking cars all night long.
Sí, siempre ha estado así ya como por los últimos 2 años. Es
It's been
un
like that for the
tráfico.
last 2 years.
Está una vuelta ahí, yo como vivo en la pura entrada, es una vuelta de carros toda la noche.
He says
con
it's just a
música y
constant
todo.
wave of cars going back and forth, just running through the community.
Okay.
Y es todo lo que tengo. Gracias.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Well, aren't you clever?
Yeah, it's my first language.
Okay, those were the only written requests to speak. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to have anything new to say or add? Yes, sir. Please come and give us your name.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eddie. I just wanted to share part of my experience. We've mentioned about, a man being a wheelchair, and that man is my father. I'm taking care of my both parents. My mother is in therapy, physical therapy, to get better physically. She was in the hospital for 3 months, and she became weak. And my father, he has a van customized for him. So when there is no parking, it's hard for us and even my father to get around on sidewalks. My father, he likes being in the park. He can't be in home all day because he gets depressed. So he tries, and then it saddens me where when he tries to go on the ramp, he has to go all the way around to just go to the park. And I want to thank you for allowing us to speak, and I just consider my parents. You know, they're handicapped, and the fact that sometimes my mother, when she can't find parking, she has to park somewhere far, and she has to come walking to her home, and that's why we're here. I usually don't come to these type of meetings. I should more often, but the reason I'm here is because it does mean a lot to me. I thank you.
Well, thank you for speaking on behalf of your parents. Anyone else have anything additional to say? Okay, then we will, yes, ma'am. Come up.
Hi, my name is Gabriela Silva.
Say that again.
Gabriela Silva. I am one of the, probably the only person here who lives in the apartment buildings next to, I live in Park West. I think the concern here is more against the apartment complex owners who are making the new parking rules, because 2 years ago, they kind of had this system where it was just a first come, first serve, and everybody who lived in the apartments are able to park in there. And if you ask the neighbors, this problem has been happening for like the past 2 years now, ever since they made the new parking rules. And
Gabriela, how did they change the rules?
They now assigned parking spots to every single stall, versus before the stalls were not numbered and everybody who lives in apartments are able to just park in there. And
So
right
are
now,
there parking spaces now that are not utilized?
yes, like half of the spaces there are not utilized because of empty apartments, or some apartment buildings, they only own one car, so the other stall is just empty. So half of the spaces there are unutilized, and it's like unfair to the people that do have it. Also, the rule, like my dad gifted me a car, so the car is registered under his name, and I can't park inside the apartment building, or else I'll get towed, because then the car is registered under my dad's name. You know, they have very, very strict rules, but before it was just like a first come, first serve, and right now they have like a 2 car per limit, 2 car per apartment rule, and it's more against like the apartment owners' rules than it is like the actual residents, because I don't want to park far. I don't want to walk 10 to 15 minutes every single day from my apartment all the way to outside. And if you do make the permit, if you vote for the permit, there's really nowhere for us to park. I mean, the Stater Brothers, that's like a 20-minute walk from where I live. So it's just not really, I don't know, realistic. There's the only solution.
That's very interesting information. Did they give you anything in writing on that? Did they like hand out, how did they assign these parking spaces?
Yeah, about 2 years, like when the pandemic started, around there, like January through March, they started enforcing more. Like my car has been towed, I've tried parking inside, my car has been towed like 3 or 4 times. Every time it gets towed, it's $400. You know, so I'm not really trying to pay a towing fee every time.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you for the information.
And I understand like everybody's frustration. If I owned a home, I wouldn't want my parking structure to be invaded by like, you know, apartment
Of course not.
residents. But it's more like the apartment complex that has the issue. I mean, the owners, not really the residents, in my opinion. I think they should just go back to like the unassigned parking stalls. That way every space there could be used. I'm pretty sure if all the spaces were available, nobody would be parking to the nearest park.
It's interesting. Okay, thank you very much for the information. Yes, you've already spoken. Do you have anything new?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, come. You have to go up here.
That was great insight. Thank you for speaking. I just wanted to ask you, there is actually, I see empty park, people can park on Yorba Avenue from the train tracks all the way to Chino Avenue
Okay, we
on the
can't,
north and south side?
that's not ours.
Oh, I know, I just wanted to know, is it, because you're saying you have to park in
Well,
Could
you can
not park there?
Ma'am, I'm sorry. Can you talk to her afterwards?
Yeah. I just wanted to bring that awareness to you, that there is a lot, all parking.
I heard that.
Okay, all
From
right.
another speaker.
Okay,
Thank you. Anyone else that has anything? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I totally understand all of your guys' frustration.
Yeah.
I live in
And your
Gilbert
name?
Courts.
Your name?
Miriam.
Miriam?
Yes.
Okay.
I live in Gilbert Courts for 14 years. We've been trying to save our money to buy a house, and the situation keeps on getting worse. It's only my husband, my son, my daughter, and me. My son just got a new car on July, his first new car. I try to park in my garage. My husband works graveyard. I travel, my job, I travel. So sometimes I have to go park by the park. And in the morning, I already have a ticket. I haven't even been there not 12 hours, and I already have a failure to move. Back then, my car is a 2019. Had register, insurance, everything. Then my car's been abandoned. It has not been abandoned. I didn't have nowhere to park. There's nowhere to park in Yorba, nowhere to park in Donahue. Where am I supposed to park? On top of my building where I live? I mean, there's no parking. There's Stater Brothers, maybe, and get towed away over there. I guess a lot of people, I noticed in my apartment, a lot of people too in my little apartments, I moved there because it's 25 apartments. I didn't want to move across the street. There's a lot of apartments, plus those were electric, that's another reason. And I noticed that a lot of people are also living in homes and apartments, a lot of people in one house due to the rent. You know, I pay $2,000 and something where we live, and it's just his income, my husband's income. So I noticed that has a lot to do with it. We have problems in my parking too, in my house, my apartment where I rent. People actually will go park in my parking. You know, I tell the manager, you know, they took one assigned parking space that we have. There's no parking on Gilbert Courts. You guys should send somebody, you know, don't take nobody's word. Investigate on Gilbert Courts. There's never no parking. And then those homeless people too, sorry for them, you know, they're homeless. You know, sometimes I think maybe we're about to get homeless too with the situation going on right now. I know I see homeless people, but like us, we're hardworking Hispanic people. They check our records. Like when they put me those tags on my car, I'm pretty sure they know that I pay for my car. I pay taxes, over $25,000 of taxes a year. I buy my cars in Chino, MK Motors. I know that money goes to my city, to Chino. This is where I want to raise my kids, and we're saving to buy a house. I pay my registration, so I'm a good person. I don't do drugs. I don't even drink alcohol. I just come home at night sometimes after I travel at 1 in the morning, 2. There's no parking. There's nothing I could do about it. I don't know where to park. I had to call my husband to go meet me, so I don't, you know, it's dangerous now. The other day I went to the doctors speaking about people stealing you guys' the catalyzers, and I talked to Chino PD, the detectives came over. I went to the doctors in Target in Philadelphia, in less than 5 minutes. I went to see my cardiologist. I came out, they tried to steal my catalyzer. It's not just there, it's everywhere. It's crime rate, it's went up everywhere, it's not just there. So I feel sorry for you guys, I totally understand. I'm not at peace either where I'm living at. I had cuckoo people living upstairs, and during the pandemic, it got crazy. Chino PD wouldn't come out of there, out of everywhere, you know. I've been reading everywhere, Rialto, Chino Hills, San Diego. I travel a lot to San Diego because of my job, Mexico, everywhere, you know, so. It's not to blame just one person, you know, the world's gone crazy.
Oh, we know.
I feel sorry for you. You guys lost your peace. We all lost our peace.
I know. Thank you very much,
That's all.
Miriam.
Thank you, guys.
Anyone else that has anything unusual to say or different? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing, turn it over to council comments. But I do have a question. Dennis, you've had contact with the apartment complex, correct?
Correct. Early on in this process, before we got to this point, staff, both our staff as well as PD, met with both apartment managers at the time and asked, you know, for their consideration to notify their residents. At that time, we were unaware that any rules had changed at the Parkside apartments. Through the last few weeks of dealing with notification, all the stuff that we've been working on probably since November, I have been in contact with some of the residents of the apartment complex. And what you heard tonight is been confirmed with some of the information that we've been receiving, that around a year and a half to 2 years ago, the rules inside the apartments on the east side of Yorba did change from, it appears to be from an at-large parking supply to assign apartments spaces per apartment thing. So that seems to kind of coincide a lot with a lot of the comments you've heard tonight. And not all those comments you heard were comments that staff has heard the last 2 years, which is why we've got to this point. So part of the hard part for staff is, at least for myself, I don't have any tools to go in and make an apartment complex change their parking rules because they're having an impact outside of their building. So I don't know if such things exist, but at least from my point of view, I don't have anything in my toolbox to help with that.
Fred, is there anything that can be done?
Yes, I mean, to the extent that rules and operating procedures of the apartment building are creating a problem for surrounding properties, that's akin to a nuisance that they're creating. So there are some tools the city has to work with them, and if they don't wish to address it, they can't operate their property so that it negatively impacts surrounding properties. And if this rule has the effect of doing that, that's a power the city could potentially have to address the issue.
Well, regardless of what we do tonight, I think that is something that we should start on immediately, because it obviously is affecting the surrounding neighborhood.
I'm happy to work with your staff if that's a desire.
Okay. I have additional comments, but I'll hold that until I hear from the rest of our council. Curtis, do you want to start off?
I'm very, very well aware of the neighborhoods down off of Yorba. I'm new on the council, but I'm not new to the city. And I know that for the last at least 40 years, the way it looks in that area, you have the communities on Oceanside, Doheny, the Parkside Village community, surrounded by apartment complexes, as well as the mobile home park. A lot of people parking, coming and going. And as all these comments are coming in, I was wondering why all of a sudden has this happened? Because I remember back, 5-10 years ago, we weren't having the problems that we're having today until somebody had mentioned COVID. That could be a problem, as well as now the assigned parking in the apartment complex. So that could absolutely have an impact on what's going on in the residential community. It is a public street. It might be a private community, you pay your dues, but it is a public street, so people have the right to park on a public street as long as they're doing so legally. If we enact this ordinance and make it a permit parking only area, those folks that are impacted by the apartment complex, where are they going to park? So we kind of go back and forth on this, and it sounds like we have some homework maybe to do, Fred, to get in contact with some folks and maybe to help solve this problem. But I appreciate everybody that has come forward today, both for and against it. It takes a lot to come up to a council meeting and speak. I appreciate all your comments, and I want you to know that I'm going to take some serious consideration as I consider this.
Karen?
First of all, I want to thank everybody who's provided their testimony here tonight from the Parkside Village community. I have actually been contacted by Mr. Aceto, Miss Mellinson, and a few other residents of this area. I've also taken time during my travels to drive through these areas in these communities, and I see the impact. The other thing I want to talk about is the testimony of our residents who live in some of our apartment complexes. We're not trying to blame anybody or point the finger. You guys are valuable residents of our community as well, and we appreciate you picking Chino to live, as residents of our community too. I have to say that I am very sympathetic to the plight of these residents who live in this area. I do know that this issue got a lot worse during the pandemic and also when we had to do some railroad work there at Yorba Avenue when we closed the railroad tracks. And as a police officer who spent my entire career in the city of Chino as well, I'm very familiar with all aspects of that community because I was raised on the west side of town. So I think what is different, even though these are technically public streets, the impact of this community that the overflow parking is having is adverse to your quality of life. But I will say to the police department here, I know that Captain Bieland is here and the chief is here. I know they've taken copious notes of your concerns that are happening. The way your community is in that cul-de-sac, and it's almost like a cul-de-sac in a square, it lends itself to people wanting to go into areas like that at night and conduct lewd acts or drink or party or different things, no different than other portions of our community. We have similar problems in other portions of our community. I know that you're like, hey, Karen, I don't care about that. I care about my community, because that would be how I would feel about it if I were you as well. I'm inclined to actually provide my support to this community because I think if we tell people, hey, we're enforcing permit parking here, we send a message to the apartment complex, and that message supports whatever action we could take publicly as a city to hold the apartment complex accountable to change their parking enforcement inside of their complex. We have been working on this. We have been hearing about these complaints for a long time specific to this area. And in fact, in our workshop earlier this evening, one of the things that was spoken about is the fact that we're building higher density residences, and this density issue is going to become a problem, and parking was one of the issues that we spoke about earlier. And as Chino continues to grow and infill projects come along, and these zoning measures that are being mandated by us, by the state of California, are going to change, so is our parking footprint. Although we keep being told by other experts that we're not going to need our cars in the future, we need our cars in the present. And what I tell people is if we don't need these parking spaces or structures in the future, we will repurpose them in the future and use them in different ways. But in the meantime, while I am sympathetic to the residents of the apartment, I do think when you move into an apartment complex, it's startling to me to hear that half the spaces there, Gabriella, are not being used. It's disappointing to me. And I do think of those spaces, if we work with the city attorney to allow you to change, to motivate the owners there to change that, we can have the best of both worlds. These residents can have permit parking in their area, you can park in your own apartment complex, and Yorba Avenue, in its intended format, can serve as overflow for people who are visiting or doing other things, or if they get home late at night and the parking is taken, then these residents, like this lady right here, can park not too far away from hopefully where she lives and enter her apartment complex safely. So I think in delivering on all of these things, we get the best benefit, and we get overflow parking onto Yorba Avenue to provide for other residents and guests. Those are my comments for the time being, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Mark?
Oh, I have one more comment.
Yeah.
Residents of Chino, we hear you. We hear you about your streets not being able to be swept. We hear you about street sweepers traveling down the middle of roads, and that is not just limited to your community. In fact, this is one of the things when I do go out and speak to residents, cars parked all over city streets in all parts of town. Our people are complaining that they can't simply get their streets swept because of parking. In fact, one of the reasons Ms. Mellison contacted me early on when I first got elected to the council was asking us to consider a street sweeping ordinance for no other reason to keep our streets clean, our curbs and gutters, to pick up trash, as well as to move cars that have been parked there for long periods of time. Let's face it, our police officers and our police department has a limited amount of resources to enforce some of those rules. But with the street sweeping ordinance, it will help us to not only clean our streets and maintain them, and for our money to go to the right place for street sweeping, not just down the center of the road. So for the residents of Chino that are concerned about that, we hear you, and we are actively working on that with our staff. So thank you.
Mark?
Okay, well, first I want to thank everybody for coming out and speaking to us tonight. For the first time, we got some emails from the apartment complex and from one of the residents that lives just outside of the affected area. Both were against this measure, and for the first time, I actually see somebody that's against the measure also come out, because usually it's always one-sided. But, I mean, what's the solution? I mean, we can pass this ordinance today, and we're just kicking the can down the road. You know, where are they going to park then? They're going to go to a different area and start parking there. We already have another community that's saying, hey, we want it too. So we're not, what we're doing here today is we're not solving any problems. We're just kicking the can down the road. I would like you, Fred, to start looking at, you know, what kind of sanctions we can start giving this apartment complex for causing the problems that they're causing in these neighborhoods. Also, I remember talking to Amr. Amr wanted to open up additional parking along Yorba and do some other things to make parking more available there. You know, I'm not opposed to doing things, but I would like to give people options. I don't want to pass an ordinance and not give the individuals an opportunity to go somewhere else. I don't want a young lady in the middle of the night driving over to Stater Brothers knowing that her car's probably going to get towed and then she has to walk all the way back. But at the same time, I also think you guys have a false expectation that you think once you get permit parking that you're just going to call the police on a Saturday night and the police are just going to come right over and tow this car or cite this car. And even if they cite it, they're not towing it. So the car's still going to be there. And the reality is, are we going to hire extra officers? No, we're not going to hire extra officers to do this enforcement. And really, parking is probably on the last priority. I mean, if we have a Friday or a Saturday night when these guys are responding to calls of domestic violence, calls for service, traffic accidents, the parking issue really kind of sits there until they've cleared everything else and now they're going to respond down to your parking. So I don't want you guys to think that if you guys get this, that you're going to just pick up the phone and the cop's going to be right there to cite a car, because it's not going to happen. You know, I don't want you guys to think that you guys are going to get this and then all of a sudden your problems are all going to go away. You're still going to have people that are going to park their cars there. Those cars are probably not even registered to them. You know, so it's just, I think, I understand the frustration that you guys have. Really, I mean, there's a lot of you here, and I feel bad for you. I do, and nobody should be picking up people's trash. And really, it's like I've said before in different neighborhoods. You can go to the worst neighborhoods in the world. You can go to Compton. You can go to Linwood and Lenox. 95 to 90% of the people that live there are great people. But it's that 2 to 5% of the people that make it worse for everybody. And those 2 to 5% are what people get impacted with. So I'm going to say that the majority of the people that you have at that apartment complex are not your people that are vandalizing, damaging your streets and everything else, but it's those few people that don't care that truly are. You know, this is a tough decision, you know, because, you know, like I said before, I think we're going to open up a can of worms. You know, you grant it here, there's a lot of communities that, unfortunately, you know, we've because of the housing elements and everything else, we've had to do high-density housing in certain areas that there just isn't enough parking for people. And then people have to go into another community and park their cars there. And then those communities are going to say the same thing. Hey, we don't want these folks here. So then how do we win? How do we solve these problems? You know, what do we do to resolve this? And I think what we're looking at right now, you know, I think before this got here, we should have done something with that apartment complex. We should have been there first and said, hey, you know, what are you guys doing that, you know, we should have done some research before they got to this point and seeing if we could have resolved this problem. Because like everybody said, you know, they're saying 4 years ago, some people are saying 2 years ago, that this really was an impact. We should have known that there was something that occurred there that all of a sudden it became a problem. You know, I'm going to have to think about it. I'm going to wait till everybody's comments and make a decision. But I think, you know, it's just tough because this is not just going to affect you guys. It's going to affect, It's going to affect people that live along Fern Avenue, north of Schaefer. There's some communities there that don't have enough parking. In fact, they can't even park their SUVs in their driveways because it blocks the sidewalk. I mean, that's the way we approved the buildings of these houses. And, then we got high-density housing and regular 4.5 zoning housing around it. And those people park in their areas. So I just, this is something that I think we could have fixed, that it didn't have to come to this point, but we didn't fix it, and now it's here. So now what are we going to do about it? And to the person that speaks Spanish, lo que estoy diciendo es que yo comprendo que esta es una situación que no está buena para la comunidad que vive, pero es algo que nosotros debemos de alegrar. Y lo que estamos oyendo es que hay un problema donde viven en los apartamentos que cambiaron las reglas allí, y cuando cambiaron esas reglas, mucha gente no puede usar los estacionamientos que tienen allí ahorita. Okay. So por eso, ahorita no tenemos una solución. Si pasamos esto, nomás va a ir a otra comunidad. Y lo que debíamos estar pensando, porque estamos aquí adelante, es una solución en cómo vamos a liderar este problema. So, no sé cómo voy a votar ahorita, voy a oír lo que dicen los demás, pero nomás no quiero que ustedes piensen que nomás vamos a pasar esa regla y va a alegrar todo. Todavía van a tener los mismos problemas porque los policías no vas a poder hablar. Va a ir tiempos que sí vas a hablar y van a llegar luego. Si es despacio, ellos van a venir. Pero si es una noche que hay muchas cosas pasando, esa va a ser la última cosa que van a hacer. Pero nomás quiero que ustedes comprendan eso, porque no quiero que pasamos esto y ustedes vienen otro día diciéndoles que los policías no están haciendo su trabajo. Es mi única cosa que... Okay?
Chris?
Well, first, I'd like to start off by thanking everybody who came out and spoke tonight for and against it. I got to say, and I shared this many times, I've been here for a little over 2 years now, and I still get nervous speaking up here, so I can share some of those experiences with you guys who spoke tonight. That being said, I have a couple questions, Dennis. On this presentation, I see the proposal is overnight permit parking. And reading the staff report, I think staff's suggestion was, all day, every day, permit parking. So what is the council considering here tonight?
I believe the way.
5 p.m. to 6
Just
a.m.
overnight
Yeah,
parking?
the resolution, as it states tonight, is 5 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day.
Okay. And if this is enacted tonight, what's the timeline? Can you go over that again?
Sure thing. So it would take us some time to order the signs. I think we've identified there's about 22 signs that would be necessary in order to sufficiently sign the neighborhood properly to make sure that there's sufficient signage there. So we were asking for about 30 days to accomplish that. A lot of, as you know, supply chains are an issue. Plus, we have a lot of sign work going on citywide. So our typical means of getting those signs may be busy with other signs, the street name signs, speed limits, all that kind of stuff. So we're asking for 30 days before we feel comfortable of erecting those signs. After those signs are erected, that's when enforcement can start. But during that time, assuming it's approved tonight, as soon as it's approved, I believe the police department's equipped to begin taking orders for permits for the residents that live in that community. So they won't have to wait for the signs to be erected. They can get the permits as soon as they feel able to. So that also allows some grace period for that. So that would be the idea is assuming everything goes well tonight and it's approved, give us about a month, we'll get the signs up, and then enforcement can begin after signs are erected.
Okay, 30 days. And the reason I ask, and now I want to turn to our city attorney, Fred, is you said this is falls in line with regards to some, possible nuisance. If we're talking about 30 days and, we go in and we speak with the apartment complexes, what can happen in those 30 days, from a legal perspective?
Certainly, if I may, as was presented earlier this evening with your code enforcement prosecutor's office, there are steps, right? So the first action would be to notify the owner of the property, the apartment complex, that we believe some of their policies are creating a negative effect on surrounding properties. And your staff, as well as your prosecutor, always tries to work with the property owner. So that's really the first step, and perhaps the property owner can explain the reasons for the policy and whether they believe that that is a cause of the problems, as was testified to today. But obviously, if the city still believes that that policy is negatively impacting surrounding properties, then we could take it through the next steps of code enforcement, as was described earlier this evening.
Okay. And last question, regarding the enforcement itself, I know Councilmember Mark Lucille just mentioned that for the most part, it's, these vehicles are going to get ticketed, but they more than likely won't be towed away. What can you explain that? I mean, what does it take for these properties to be towed away, or how can it get to that point so these residents do see a change?
Thank you very much. If I could address that, and that's one of the reasons why we looked at the timeline from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. I know that the residents had asked for midnight. We don't have our police service officers working at that time, and they're the ones who are responsible typically for writing citations. And so having it start at 5 p.m., we're also told by the community it was when people got off work that it was at the worst. So we would have them start issuing tickets, and those tickets, that's all it is. It puts it on the window, and as Councilmember Lucio said, if that registered owner is not the person driving that vehicle, that ticket will probably never get paid. Now, at some point, as those tickets add up, then we can take additional enforcement action, and it can lead to towing. Of course, if a vehicle is left on the street for over 72 hours, we can already take enforcement on that. And over the past year, because of the attention that's been brought to the police department for the parking problems, we've written over 50 tickets in just that community alone for vehicles that were parking improperly. All right.
Thank you, Chief.
Wes, of those 50 tickets that have already been written, were they paid?
I don't have the answer to that.
Okay. Anything else, Chris?
Yeah, I guess what I would like to share now is I think one thing that Mayor Pro Tem Karen mentioned was that this is a unique community in that the community is kind of built in a cul-de-sac way, right? One way in, one way out. That does distinguish this from a lot of other communities, and that may be experiencing some of these same issues. But last couple thoughts, I really hope our staff can make that contact with these apartment complexes, and not just that one, but any other apartment complexes throughout the city who may have enforced some of the same issues, and has led to some bleeding over of just extra parking into some of our communities as well. I think it'd be a good thing to be proactive in that. And with that being said, I that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and being very courteous and kind and not repeating a lot of information. You've been a great group to deal with, I have to tell you. In the past, we've had some groups that were not so good. So thank you for being nice, decent people. And thank you for coming with your opposition too, because again, you're classy. We have a request for permit parking, but it came to my mind, this is a community that only has one entrance and one exit, right? Would it be feasible to gate it instead of parking permits? Can you gate public streets?
I don't believe you can. I think in order to do that, the streets would have to be changed to private.
No, they would have to maintain
What's the process of
Yeah,
And
what-
there's a
what would-
process associated with that.
Because it seems to me, if this is an HOA, one lady said that she's already paid, I think it was $52,000 in association fees, and yet, there's a feeling that they can't use their own park, they can't park on their own streets, they're having to leave trash cans out to try to keep parking open for themselves. That's a lot of money to pay to belong to an HOA to then lose your rights in your own community. So I'm thinking it's public streets, but could it be converted to private streets and that HOA actually in charge of the streets and as well as the park, which it already is, but gate that one entrance? And the only people that could get in and out are the residents that have the code to the gates, because we don't hear of that problem in other areas where we have gated communities. This is a private community, but it's open to the public.
Yeah, and I believe Amr I don't know if he was coming up to talk or not, but I put him on the spot. But I know part of the...
He just ran to the back.
Maybe not. I know part of the concerns by making the streets private, right now as they're public, they're maintained publicly.
Right, I understand that.
To change them to private would mean the HOA would have to take over all operation and maintenance of those streets, which would be a bigger burden on the HOA than they currently already have with their HOA dues.
But not only that, but they would be responsible for building whatever it took to make the gate gated.
No, I understand that, but I'm just wondering, sometimes you have to think outside the box, and is there a better solution than parking permits, which would still allow people who don't belong to the community to park there, right? Yeah. So it's just something that I'm wondering if we've looked at or could look at as a possibility. Let's say we do grant the parking permits and it doesn't work. Is that a possibility that it could be a gated area? Now other communities like the one right across the street, there are 2 cul-de-sacs, that would be very difficult. But this is a circle with just one entrance and one exit.
I do recall a conversation really early on in the process where we were discussing, I forget which community member I was talking to, about the uniqueness of this community with it having a private park, with them having an HOA, and the fact that their streets are public. And there being a conversation about, well, what would it take to convert it to private? I'm not familiar with the complete process, but I know that probably has some challenges with it and would take some time, of course. But I'm certainly, willing to explore any possibilities because as we've talked about, not just in this meeting, other meetings, parking, especially as a part of the housing issue that we have here, is always going to be an issue as long as we all have cars.
That's right.
So definitely am more than willing to look into any other solutions. I did look at, as you kind of brought up, alternative parking configurations on Yorba Avenue to try to fit more cars on there, even go so far as to consider angled parking. It just won't fit. In order to do that, we would have to widen the street, which would take a big capital investment. So there's certainly things that we can do, but all of them have some kind of investment that's probably required to make them happen.
Sure. Well, I have to say, my heart goes out to the homeowners. I mean, you invest your lives and it's your home and you expect to be able to park and be safe in your own community. So my heart goes out to them when it comes to that. And I am inclined to agree with doing the parking permit. I just don't know if it's going to really resolve the issue or not. So, number one, I would like, Fred, for you to follow up immediately with code enforcement and get with the apartment complex and see what we can do about getting them to do the at-large parking instead of this assigned per apartment, especially since they have a lot that are not being used. That hopefully would open up some parking on Yorba there for your situation, since someone's parking in your slot and the smaller apartment complex across the street. And hopefully it would help your issue as well. But I would really like you to consider looking into what it would take to make this a gated community. Because I just have a feeling that this is not going to completely resolve the issue. I think it will help. Hopefully I'm wrong. But if it doesn't, maybe we could already do some homework and see what it would take to change something else to make it a truly your community.
I know, Mayor, that not too long ago, the council did change a rule to prohibit private streets, but I believe that was as to new development.
That was new developments.
Yeah, so I was trying to look up the code section as you were speaking.
Yeah, that was new developments. But I do, again, I want to thank you all for coming this evening. You've been incredibly nice with your issues, and I understand the frustration. So with that said, are there any other last comments that council members would like to make?
I want to make a comment.
Okay, then I would ask for the,
I just had one more comment, Mayor.
one more comment from Karen.
I just want to assure the residents of our apartment complexes that we're going to give you a commitment as well to working with your property managers to help resolve your issues. I think tonight, by you coming and attesting what's happening tonight, it'll help us as a city to contact these property owners and help restore your parking to your areas as well. I'm sure you would like to have that. So that, again, so we hopefully can use overflow parking in the right way. So thank you to everybody for coming here tonight. I think it was very informative. We appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
May I?
Yes, Fred.
One more on a procedural issue. Your ordinance that addresses parking permit requirements and this particular hearing explains that once a public hearing is convened, the council may continue the hearing from time to time. So I know that there were some questions about other options. So that is an option the council has to potentially continue the hearing. Or you can proceed with the recommended action or not approve the suggested permitting program.
Okay, well, the recommendation is obviously that we conduct the public hearing, which we did, and if deemed appropriate by the council, adopt resolution 2023-002 establishing a residential parking permit area on the 4700 block of Doheny Drive, San Clemente Lane, Oceanside Drive, San Simeon Lane, and Cardiff Place by amending section 2 of resolution 86-44. So to start off with, I would ask for a motion and a second on the recommendation. If that does not receive a motion and a second and an appropriate vote, then we will have more discussion. So is there a motion in favor of the recommendation?
I'm going to make the motion, Mayor.
Okay. There's a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Comstock. Is there a second? Yes, there is. There is a second from Councilman Burton. Please vote. Okay, there is 4 yes and 1 no. So we have granted the parking permit. And it will move forward as you've heard the timeline. Our city attorney will follow up with the apartment complex.
We just need to announce the votes. I know you said whether there was one.
It didn't show me who the no was. Okay, there was a no from Councilman Lucio. My mind went blank. Okay, 4 yes, 1 no being Mr. Lucio, and he expressed his reasons why. Okay. Dennis, please follow up with the gated possibility if that ever does happen to come up so that we have some information.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you all for being here this evening. Okay, we'll move on now to item number 7, amendment to approval of 2021-2029 housing element update. I'd like to declare the public hearing open and ask for a staff report from our Director of Development Services, Mr. Nick Ligori.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Tonight we are looking at a revision to the city's housing element. As we had discussed last week, the city has had to submit our housing element for review for compliance with HCD several times. We're addressing every element of that document and their comments diligently, and they are continuing to ask for more. And so we are making a huge effort to try and get the housing element certified and approved by the State Department of Housing and Community Development. Our primary consultant for that is Kimley Horn, and so tonight I have with me Mr. Dave Barquist, the primary consultant. And so he's going to give you an update on where we're at, and we'll ask for your approval of revisions that the city has made to the housing element in pursuit of certification by the state.
Thank you, and Madam Mayor and members of the council. I have a brief presentation, give you a status of where you're at in the process of the housing element. So just a little background. The update process is an iterative process, and what we like to say, the alphabet soup of Assembly bills and Senate bills that we have to address makes that much a complicated process. So you started this in 2021 and through 2020 and 2021, developed a plan, had the process of creating the policy program that accompanies the overall housing element. That was considered before the Planning Commission in late 2021, made a recommendation to this body for approval, which you did in January of this past year. Subsequent to that, it was submitted to the state. We get review letters, which essentially says these are the components of the plan that will need to be changed to comply with statutory provisions in the law, to be compliant with state law. And so that's the process of going through, is to address those comments. Late this past year, we received additional comments from the state. We wanted to give you a summary of those comments. We can tell you that the spirit of intent of what was adopted in January is fairly intact. It's more details and what I call meat on the bone to get more clarity so they can check that box for statutory compliance. So I'll briefly overview a few of those comments from the state. Firmly furthering fair housing is a big component of state law through Assembly Bill 686. We had to look at the analysis of disparities in access to opportunities. That means housing opportunities for a wider spectrum of income levels within your community, and then the local knowledge and contributing factors to what that means for fair housing. So somewhat of a narrative approach to telling the story of Chino. As part of the fair housing analysis, wanted more clarity in the goals, priorities, and metrics. So identifying what the issues are, how you're going to address those issues, and how you'll measure it over time for the 2021 to 2029 planning period. The non-vacant sites analysis was further information was requested for the viability of using non-vacant sites to address your future housing needs. We want to note to you that the changes in the request from the state, there was no changes in the actual candidate housing sites that you've already seen as a body, so that has remained unchanged. We had to make some reductions in our assumptions on accessory dwelling unit production over the planning period, and that was based on statutory requirements, which essentially looks at past performance as the guide. So we had to pull back on that a little bit to address the state's comments. We had to address issues for zoning for a variety of housing types consistent with state law requirements. We needed to look at processes, permit procedures, so the hoops that an applicant has to jump through to get a project to the approval process. So we had to look at timeframes, review procedures, and all the related elements of the entitlement process to tell that story. The successful approval of Measure Y, which essentially provided for the implementation of the zoning revisions that are required in the housing element. That was successful this past year. We had to do additional outreach as required by new statutory requirements. Anytime we have a element that goes for the review at the state, it now requires a 7-day review period to provide the public and stakeholders the ability to make comments to that. Should we receive comments, we would address those comments as appropriate. You would have seen those comments. In this period, we didn't have any of those comments. So the next step is the comments that we received. We'll work with staff to develop a submittal package to HCD this week to get it on a timeline. There's no further action that's needed from an environmental standpoint. Once we get the review process completed within the next 60 days, our intent is to have a letter of substantial compliance before you within that period. And That concludes the presentation. Be happy to answer any questions you may have them.
I have a question of Nick. We had a workshop prior to the council meeting tonight to talk about our housing element. And the council gave you direction on 5 questions. How does our direction impact the housing element that you are poised to resubmit?
So the positive aspect is that we are on a path to adopt standards for the overlays, and which the state wants us to have adopted. So we're on a positive path with that. The negative is that the state would love us to eliminate all standards and make it extremely simple and straightforward to build housing. And so by requiring more of developers for the benefit of those future residents is in a way in conflict with the direction we're given from the state, which essentially is build housing at any cost, at all expediency. So we feel pretty strongly that the combination of the very detailed and thorough analysis that Mr. Barquist's firm has done in compliance with the statutory requirements of housing element law, coupled with the adoption of Measure Y and the overlay zone modifications and standards that we're putting together, we are confident that we will achieve certification like some of our neighboring cities, which I would argue have not been required to do as much as Chino is doing, especially when Chino is actually building housing compared to a lot of other cities in the state. So we feel very confident, but the state is always going to ask us to evaluate our standards, evaluate our permitting processes and procedures, and ask us to figure out how to cut down the time, cut down the cost, and cut down the requirements.
Okay, well, you heard from council very clear that we do not want to give up on many of our requirements, that we're very concerned with quality housing, and that the moderate and low income people have just as high a quality as everyone else in our community. So we're not willing to make shortcuts in order to appease the state. So again, what you heard today from us, how is that going to impact the submittal that you're about to do? Is it going to have any impact on that submittal?
What's your opinion?
You have the housing element proper is the policy program implemented through the policies and programs. So you do have a kind of fence between the two. And so an issue with the implementing mechanism through the zoning code updates would not necessarily influence initial getting a certification, where it could in the future that they could evaluate that and look at that, and they may have questions, but that remains to be seen. But consider them as two separate events that are exclusive of each other at this point.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from council members?
Just one question, and I asked this earlier, Nick, but just for the, I guess for the general public, has the city imposed any penalties or fines or anything like that for not having not having complied up to this point, I guess, according to the state?
No. So the state's viewpoint is that cities that are working towards certification, they don't want to penalize those cities because they know that those cities are trying to follow the requirements. Unfortunately, HCD is allowed by law a 60-day review period. So we could get their comments, we could make the modifications, we could do our 7-day public review period and get things turned around to them very quickly, but they still are allowed 60 days to send their comments. So that really extends the timeline. But the cities that are working towards compliance, they're not the cities that HCD is going after to fine. It's the cities that are doing nothing. That's the target. So Chino has not been assessed any penalties, nor has there been a threat even from HCD, because they know that we're actively working with them.
Okay. Karen, did you have any questions? No, ma'am. Okay, then I would ask for a motion and a second to approve item number 7.
This is a public hearing. I don't know if you asked if members of the public.
Are there any
would like to speak.
members of the public that would like to address the council on item number 7? Okay, seeing none, then did I open the public hearing?
You opened it, but you haven't closed it.
Brain fade. Okay, now I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion and a second to approve item number 7. Motion from Councilman Burton, second from Councilman Flores. Item passes unanimously. Item number 8, purchase order approval, Miracle Recreation Equipment Company Incorporated, Play Power Incorporated. This is to approve a purchase order in the amount of $192,631.64 for Miracle Recreation Equipment Company Incorporated, Play Power Incorporated, Dallas, Texas, for the purchase of playground equipment and shade sails for the Walnut Park Improvement Project identified as G8223. I'd like to ask for a staff report from our Assistant Project Coordinator, Mr. Keith Martinez.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. In December of 2021, the city was awarded the per capita grant in the amount of $232,854 to be used towards park recreational improvements or development. Per the grant requirements, the city is required to provide a 20% match. During the Parks and Facilities Master Plan development, inspection services were conducted in all city parks to determine the existing condition of park amenities and replacement schedules. Due to the aging condition, staff elected to use the grant funds for park improvements at Walnut Park. The scope of work is to include the replacement of the existing playground with an all-inclusive playground, rubber surfacing, shade sails, and lighting. Additional improvements will also include accessibility improvements to the parking lot, walkways, picnic tables, park benches, and drinking fountain. The city's purchasing ordinance allows the city to take advantage of competitive bids awarded to vendors by other agencies. Sourcewell issued a notice inviting bids and conducted a nationwide competitive bid process. As a result, Miracle Recreation Equipment Company, Inc., Play Power, Inc., Dallas, Texas, was selected to provide the playground equipment and shade sails. Staff is requesting City Council to approve a purchase order of Miracle Recreation Equipment Company, Inc., Play Power, Inc., in the amount of $192,631.64 for the direct purchase of the equipment, including engineered drawings. The City Attorney's Office has reviewed all documents and found them to be in order. This concludes my report. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions of staff on this item or any comments? Okay, then I would entertain a motion and a second for item number 8. Motion from Councilman Flores, second from Councilman Lucio. And the item passes unanimously. Thank you, Keith. Item number 9, create homeless outreach coordinator and assistant homeless outreach coordinator positions. This is to approve a new full-time non-management homeless outreach coordinator position and a new full-time assistant homeless outreach coordinator position. Staff report by our clinical specialist, June Sano. On your microphone, please.
Good evening, Mayor Ulloa, council members, Dr. Reich, City Manager. To properly address the homeless issues in the city of Chino, the Community Services Department is proposing 2 new positions. These positions will work in coordination with the Chino Police Department's Quality of Life team, as well as with the city case managers to provide more comprehensive team approach to the needs of the unhoused population. The Homeless Outreach Coordinator and Assistant Homeless Outreach Coordinator will incorporate case management practices to ensure unsheltered individuals receive the necessary resources and referrals that will assist them to successfully find sustainable housing. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Staff on these two positions or comments? June, I was able to zoom in on a meeting last week of the West End Homeless Coalition. There were over 30 people on that call, and all kinds of nonprofit organizations that work together on homeless. Now, our couple of staff people were not on the call. Apparently, there was a conflict, schedule conflict. It seems like I was actually surprised that there are so many nonprofit organizations involved in homeless. Do we access some of those organizations to provide help to the city of Chino?
We do have a lot of nonprofit organizations and community organizations who do help in need when we reach out, when there are needs with the population that we cannot cover. So I know we do have a lot of community involvement as we do work with the unhoused.
I was really surprised. There was a great deal of money that they were talking about that's available, and that we've been allotted over $1 million over 3 years. And so I would like a follow-up report on the next council meeting as to the organizations that we do deal with and where that money is being utilized, the money that's available to us, the voucher systems and other things that were brought up in that meeting. I think it would be very interesting for the council to learn about those organizations.
That funding that you asked about is our PLHA funding, which we're currently using for homelessness and transitional housing. So that's the money that's been earmarked for that. There's also a lot of federal money out there that we're planning to go after. We're looking at it right now. As we build a transitional housing location, we won't be able to run that ourselves. We'll have to partner with a nonprofit to help us run the transitional housing when we get to that point. And currently, like June said, we work with so many different nonprofits right now. We don't specifically have one that does this type of work, the intensive case management that we provide daily in the streets and have those 50 to 60, 70 contacts with a homeless person. So that's what these positions will do. But at the next meeting, I think it would probably be good for us to come back and really give you a comprehensive picture of our homeless outreach that we have, not only community services, case managers, the County of San Bernardino, and the police department, and that process that we have. That might be helpful. I think it'd probably be better to do it in a workshop.
Okay.
If we can plan a workshop coming up and give you that comprehensive program that we've put in place and the different resources that we use. So if you'd like, if that'd be okay with the council, we'll schedule that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. But it was very eye-opening to see how many people are involved in this and how much money is actually out there. So rather than work independently as a standalone, it would be really good to partner with our surrounding communities to make sure we're not duplicating efforts. Okay, thank you very much. Any questions, comments? Okay, then we would need a motion and a second to approve these two new positions. There's a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Comstock, second from Councilman Burton. And the item passes unanimously. Thank you, June. Item number 10, resolution number 2023-006, supporting the California Transportation Commission relinquishment of Euclid. This is to adopt the resolution. Our staff report will be provided by our Deputy City Manager, Vivian Castro.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members, members of the audience, and staff. Before council for their consideration this evening is Resolution 2023-006, which would authorize the city to proceed with support legislation that would provide for the relinquishment of portions of Euclid Avenue, also known as State Route 83, that are within the city of Chino city limits, to relinquish that over to the city. The first step in the process is this adoption of the resolution. Then we have Assemblymember Freddie Rodriguez, who has already submitted legislative council language, but we need approval prior to him actually submitting the legislation. So upon council's approval of this resolution, Assemblymember Rodriguez would submit legislation across the desk. The importance of this legislation is that Euclid Avenue is an important thoroughfare regionally. It's important for communities within Chino to be able to access each other, and additionally for residents to be able to access our services. But unfortunately, because possession belongs to Caltrans, permits are required, causing sometimes delays and increasing the complexity. And so therefore, we would like to be able to expedite important projects such as landscaping medians, technology improvements, important safety projects such as raising the profile of Euclid by 12 feet at Chino Creek and improving segments of Euclid from 71 to Pine. So for all of these reasons, we are requesting the council's support for this resolution, which would be the first step to relinquishment of those portions of Euclid to the city of Chino. Additionally, it would request authorization for the city manager to negotiate the terms of that relinquishment and to proceed with any documentation, any other work that's required. And be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Vivian. As I've stated before, I have my reservations about taking over Euclid because much of it is bordered by county property. The Chino Airport, Prado Park, the shooting range and archery range, as well as the state of California with the Heman Stark facility. All of that borders Euclid. It's very important to me in particular that we reach out to the county and the state to ensure that they're going to pay their fair share of Euclid Avenue that fronts on their property, that our citizens do not bear the expense of improving state and county property. So I'm supportive of this, of taking local control under the conditions that the county and the state assume their fair share of their responsibility as well. Council comments or questions? Karen?
Mayor, could you cover some of the details we learned in the workshop about also the opportunity at this given moment in time to get some additional funding from Caltrans? We are quite certain it won't be available to us in the future. If Amr could help us, just so our residents know that we have a unique opportunity right here at this moment in time, please.
Yeah, there are, Amr's going to cover that we do have several $1 million available to us that will help with the improvement of the bridge and some of the areas of Euclid. However, it's not all of the funding. So I mean, it's a great deal, and it will certainly help, and we don't want to miss out on that funding, but it will not pay for the whole amount. Amr, would you review those funds, please?
Just Mayor and Council members, so in discussions with Caltrans, we know that they have set aside $15.8 million for improvements to Pine Avenue between SR 71 and the northern city limit, that's Riverside Avenue. In addition to that, they have applied and obtained a grant for $16.5 million. That would be to work in the area that's south of Pine Avenue and to raise that area out of the floodplain. The total cost of that project is about $50 million, and we're looking at potentially money that we have coming from SBCTA to fund the gap. We're also looking to apply for a federal grant to be able to get additional monies. We will be talking to the entities you mentioned, state and the county, to see if there's any fundings available to improve the sections that are fronting their properties. So all of those things that you've discussed, we are going to follow up and keep doing. This is a long-term investment for the city. This is not something that we will take on and then just finish it in the next few years. It'll take another 10, 15 years for us to get that completed. But we'll once we have that, we can start working on it.
Right. Thank you very much.
And my only comments are if I'm in support of taking over Euclid Avenue. The reality is nobody's going to improve that street. Caltrans is not going to come in and improve that street. We know that street needs to be improved. There needs to be additional lanes, and something that if we don't push forward and we don't do it, and Caltrans is not going to negotiate with the county, they're not going to negotiate with the state, they're not going to do any of those things that probably needs to happen to be able to get the funding for it. And I think the only way that that's going to occur is if we lead it. So I'm in full support of taking over Euclid Avenue. I think we probably should have done it. Well, right now it's ideal because they're going to give us money. If we would have done it before, we would have lost out on the money. But I mean, just with the whole striping that you guys had to go through, having to wait for months for Caltrans to get around to something, just with all the road work that we know it's going to be going in and around that whole area, having to deal with Caltrans on every approval process is all it's going to do is delay and delay and delay and just set more obstacles for us. Where I think we have the right team in place right now to take some of these projects and run with them and take the lead on them, and I think we're in the best position to do it now.
I think the bridge money has to be committed by, is it 2026?
The project has to start construction in August of 2026. That's the timeline on that. So we've been trying to get an RFP out to start the design. We have conversations already going on with Caltrans on how we're going to get there. So we're pretty confident we can start the work, design work, and get there in time. And I think there's a way to funding this thing, but just coming back to the comment on the timing, I think this is good timing. State had the money. They were able to allocate this money. They got federal grant. So they were able to put all this money towards Euclid Avenue. So this may not come. Once they spend this money in 15, 20 years from now, this opportunity may not come back.
Now, our Mr. Gonzalez was talking about how there's going to be a pullback of some transportation funding. You don't think that will impact this? This has already been earmarked?
This has already been earmarked. We'll follow up. As part of this process, this is a year-long process. So we'll be making sure that all of these things are accomplished. So the money is going to come. We'll have the control over it, and we're able to spend it as we plan to.
Excellent. Okay.
Well, we learned from the representatives of Caltrans at that workshop that this will not take priority, and that I agree with everything that's been said here by the council. We all have our reservations about this, but we do have the right people in place, and us leading it and taking the lead and driving, these improvements moving forward, I think is going to put us in a position of advantage. So thank you, Amar, for working with Caltrans directly, for securing that funding. It's certainly not all of it, but it's a good start for us. And in conversations with our residents, they're concerned about Euclid. They're concerned about the overall improvements, the widening, the infrastructure that's going to be needed there. This is a huge transportation issue for us, one of many that we were able to successfully talk through at the workshop. So thank you to staff and everybody that's been working on that for us.
Well, and especially when Ontario finishes their project, which is there north of the Chino Airport. That's the biggest Amazon facility in the world. That's going to have a huge impact on Euclid Avenue. Huge impact.
That is correct. And then one of the big driving factors is that Ontario has already taken over their section. So as we go along, if we don't take over, then it's even more complicated for us to do anything there because we have to now deal with two agencies.
Right.
So that's another reason that we think we should take over this section as well.
I also am in full support of taking over Euclid. It is well overdue. We should have done this many years ago. So the fact that the monies are going to be available, here we go again. Let's take advantage of it now and not let it slip by us. I'm with you, Mayor. I think that we get a hold of the state and the county, have them pay their fair share for those improvements that are necessary outside those facilities. But right now is the time to do it. Upland did it. Ontario did it. We didn't do it. We need to do it. We need to step up, and it's time to do it now. So thank you, Amr, for doing the work. I appreciate it, and I'm in full support of taking that over.
Well, the other good thing, too, is that huge Ontario facility actually helped us by, they mandatorily had to improve the whole Merrill Avenue strip, both sides, our side and Ontario's side, which was a big expense, too, and that helps us. That relieved some of the pressure from us as well. Okay, then with that, we would need a motion and a second to approve item number 10. Motion from Councilman Flores, second from Councilman Lucio. Item passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is mayor and council reports. I'll go through mine as quickly as possible. Wednesday, January 4th, I attended the Omnitrans and San Bernardino County Transportation Authority Board of Director meetings. Thursday, the 5th, I virtually attended the Chino de Salter Authority Board of Directors. I'll skip the details on that. Monday, January 8th, met with staff and others regarding our update on our city's finances. Tuesday, January 10th, along with the rest of council and key staff members, we attended an all-day workshop to discuss priorities, council priorities as relate to several issues, like our positive image, exemplary leadership, superior customer service, and effective technology, public service excellence through internal and external partnerships, financial stability, and responsible long-range planning. Wednesday, January 11th, I attended the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast. Then following that, I attended the San Bernardino County Homeless Partnership West Valley Regional Steering Committee via Zoom. And that was the meeting that I referred to earlier. That was my first experience with this committee. I know several of our staff members are involved with the committee, but they were not on the call that morning. Let's see, Thursday, January 12th, I attended the Metro Valley, the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority Metro Valley Study Session Board of Directors, released an RFP for callbox maintenance services. Then I virtually attended the appropriate pool confidential session. Friday the 13th, I attended the senior birthdays with Commissioner Brenda Strong and former council member Walt Pocock. It seems that the attendance at the senior center is finally improving, which is a good sign. Let's see. And today, before the council meeting, we had our workshop on our state mandated housing element and our code enforcement process and procedures. Mayor Pro Tem Comstock.
Apologize for that chime in there, Mayor. I also attended the EMT Council workshop at Chaffey College on the 10th of this month. On the 9th of this month, I also attended my one-on-one conference with the city manager. Had a good meeting there. Chief, I was busy on the 11th, so my apologies to you for not making my fire board meeting, but that won't happen again for me next month. I do not have a conflict there. I hope everybody enjoyed a nice Martin Luther King holiday that weekend. And then I also attended the city council workshop this afternoon at 4:30. We've been here for a long day today, Mayor, so I was going to keep my report short today. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Burton.
Thank you, Mayor. January 9th, I had my one-on-one with the city manager, and I appreciated that. Also, the chief was there. He presented me with the 5-year plan of the police department, which was very, very informative. Thank you, Chief. On the 10th, the council EMT workshop at Chaffey College. On the 12th, I attended a ribbon cutting with Councilman Flores at Chuck E. Cheese. It was their grand reopening, and there was a great big, what is it, a rat or a mouse?
Mouse.
It's a very kind animal, nonetheless. But there were a lot of people there. They've done a lot of really great improvements in there, and it's
Kids like that place.
kids. Yeah, you can go there and be a kid. Or how is it? Something like that.
Did you jump into that big pit with the balls? And
No, but Councilman Flores was out there trying to wrestle with some kids to, shoot some baskets and everything, and I thought he could do that if he wanted to do that. I know how competitive he can be. On the 13th, I met with the Director of Finance, Rob Burns, for a budget overview. Thank you for that. And also on the same day, I met with our Deputy City Manager, Vivian Castro, for an overview of our Civic Center master plan. I appreciate your time on that. On the 14th, I attended another ribbon cutting for Casa Diaz Restaurant, their grand opening over off of Schaefer and Euclid. What a really nice addition that they put in there. If you haven't been there, go in and check it out. The food is great, but I'll tell you, they've really done some nice things with that restaurant. On the 17th, I attended the City Council workshop. That was today. And I want to remind everybody, like the mayor mentioned at the very beginning of the council meeting, the Run for Russ is on February 4th. I really, really encourage each and every one of you to come out, but not just you. Bring your families. This is a family affair. What a great time, clean fun, and all your monies go to a worthwhile organization. It goes right back into our community, right back to these kids that we are desperately trying to raise in the right way. So February 4th, it's a Saturday, right here in the Civic Center. Mark your calendars and come on down and be part of that. And then I want to close my comments. My prayers are to Darnell Calhoun from Riverside Sheriff and his family and the Sheriff's Office and their employees. They've gone through a tremendous amount of stress and pressure and just agony right now in their lives. The law enforcement profession, public safety, is very difficult. We send our family members out there that are involved in law enforcement, hoping that they're going to come home at the end of the night. Sometimes they don't. So I really appreciate our law enforcement, and my prayers are with that family. And with that, Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you, Kurt. Councilmember Flores.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 4th of January, I attended the orientation of the West Valley Mosquito Vector and Control District. On the 10th, I attended the council EMT workshop. On the 11th, I attended the mayor's prayer breakfast. On the 12th, as mentioned earlier, I attended the ribbon cutting for Chuck E. Cheese, and trust me, you guys don't want to know what I seen Kurt doing there. And that day, I also attended the Leadership Collaborative, a collab that the Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce has going. And that day, we took a tour of the Chino Hills facilities, the city of Chino Hills. We attended their city hall. We seen some of the Chino Hills, the police department, facilities over there, and that was pretty sweet. And on the 18th, last thing, I want to remind everybody that tomorrow, the 18th, is the Chino Champion ribbon cutting and grand opening. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to kind of give them a plug there because I know they've been a staple in our community for a long time. And on top of that, we will be taking over their previous facilities as well. So thank you, Mayor.
It's 11:30, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Councilman Lucio.
Yeah, so I'll keep mine short. On January 5th, I attended a truck storage meeting. On January 9th, I attended a meeting with the city manager. January 10th, I attended the EMT council retreat. January 17th, I attended the city council workshop. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was this past weekend, there was a wrestling tournament called 5 Counties. It was held in Fountain Valley. It's probably one of the most competitive wrestling tournaments in all of Southern California. And the reason they call it 5 Counties is because it represents people from the 5 counties. It was, anywhere from San Diego, San Bernardino, Riverside, LA, Orange County. This tournament is very, very tough. Any bracket could have up to 56 kids. And I just wanted to point out that Coach Alex Angulo brought his team, and they competed against some of the best teams that there is. And just to give you an idea how competitive this tournament is, one team won 4 championships, and that was the Gilroy team. And the Gilroy team is trained by nobody else other than DC, Dan Cormier, from the former UFC heavyweight champion. So when you're sitting there coaching, you're coaching against guys of that caliber that's coaching his high school teams. So out of all the teams that competed, I think there was probably a little over 30. Chino High School came in 12th. And they beat recognized programs such as Corona Centennial, who's had a powerhouse team for a long, long time. And they did an exceptional job. They had 4 people that placed in that tournament. And the reason I'm highlighting him is because he's taken a program where he's getting people that have never wrestled before and is teaching them how to wrestle, and these guys are competing at a very high level. Of course, he does have some kids that have wrestled before and have wrestled a little longer but he's really turning this program around, and he currently has a fundraiser. It's called Fan Angel. and it's for the Chino High School Wrestling Family and Friends. And on there it says, "Thank you very much for taking the time to view our fundraising page. We depend on fundraising to support and provide our high-quality programs to our remarkable team, exceptional youth wrestlers. This year, we're setting out to defend the league title, as well as a challenge for our CIF team titles this year. Our goal is to advance as many wrestlers as we can through the CIF playoff series. This includes placing in league finals, CIF regionals, Southern Section Masters, state tournaments, and we hope to develop a strong team culture that will extend and influence our school as a whole. We truly appreciate your support and that you give to our program. Your generosity will help provide the best possible experience to our Panther wrestlers. And if you guys don't know what the Panther wrestlers are, that's his youth, that's his female team that he's developing as well. And his female team is also doing very, very well. And I remember when we brought him up here last year, they had one female that was actually a state placer. So this is what he's putting this out there. He's hoping to raise, I believe he wants to raise $5,000. So far he's raised $1,660. I'm going to ask to donate some of my money from my community support funds. But it's just something that I want to put out there to everybody, not just the council, but to the community. This guy's doing some great things for our high school, and my son, when he started wrestling, he started at Chino Smash, and that's what it was called back then. And then they didn't allow them to practice at Chino, and they bounced around a couple different places, and they ended up at Ayala High School. And Ayala High School hijacked our youth program, and it's now called Ayala Smash. He's committed to bringing back a youth program here to Chino. He says he's already got several wrestling coaches that will help him build a program. So he's got a new wrestling room. I'm working kind of with our two new school board members. He doesn't have mats, so they're going to try to work with the school district to try to get him some new mats. He's got a new wrestling room, but no mats. But I'm hoping with what he has there, that maybe we could start a youth program out of that high school. But I think he's the right guy there. He's motivated. He's young. He's fun size, like we've said before.
Fun size.
He's little enough to roll around with the kids, and to push them. But I just wanted to acknowledge he's done some great things, and I'm really excited to see what he's doing. And
that's the Chino High School website that has that?
No, it's on Fan Angel. So it's Fan Angel / FANANGEL / and it's Chino Wrestling. And I also want to close with my heart and prayers go out to Deputy Sheriff Calhoun and his family, and to the whole Riverside Sheriff's Department. To lose 2 guys in 2 weeks has got to be devastating for them. The LA County Sheriff's Department lost somebody also, I think it was yesterday, it was yesterday. And that was Stephen Lim. I had the pleasure of working with him at East LA Station when I was there as a sergeant. He was a good man. He was a good family man. He left behind some kids as well. 5 kids. So I just ask you to keep our first responders in your prayers. And it is one of those jobs that you leave the house and you don't know whether or not you're going to come home. You always assume you will, but sometimes you don't.
He had a medical issue, right?
He did. He had a medical issue. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. City Manager Reich.
No report tonight, Mayor.
City Attorney Galante.
No report either. Thank you.
Police Chief Simmons.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I just want to reiterate my appreciation for this council's support of law enforcement and the Chino Police Department. I remember it'll be 24 years ago coming up that Russ was killed, and we had the candlelight vigil out here on the steps. The community came out for that, and the community has continued to come out every year for the Run for Russ, just to encourage people to continue to sign up. Don't forget, our own Kiwanis Club will be providing a free pancake breakfast. You don't have to run. You can walk, or you can just pay the money and collect your commemorative T-shirt. And you, medals. If you win, we'll give you a medal. And as a reminder, we'll be wearing our commemorative Russ Miller badges until the end of February to acknowledge that. And I was just thinking about it, hearing your comments and as you were sharing about Russ. Coming up in December would be Russ's 75th birthday, and he should be enjoying his retirement with his grandkids right now.
Yeah.
So thank you
Is
again
his
for your
daughter
support.
going to be in attendance, do you know?
I suspect she will be.
Sarah's usually there.
Yep.
Yeah. He was such a nice guy. I had the privilege of knowing him on the posse. In fact, we had ridden together, I think it was like 2 weeks before he was killed.
Yeah.
Such a nice guy. Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.
Chief Williams, you're out of uniform tonight.
Fancy.
It's fancy.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Real quick on the business side of things, we have a workshop scheduled at the county on the 25th and 26th. Invitations have been out to city managers as well, and I know City Manager Reich is aware, and I believe will be attending. It's really just along the lines of the ambulance stuff. Still, we keep plugging away. Things are looking good from our perspective, and we're going to keep working that. And thank you very much for the support. On this Thursday, the 19th, I'll be meeting with some of the command staff from Chino PD out at our substation at the Preserve to discuss an opportunity for further use of that facility for the police department to be able to meet the needs of the community out there that need to come in real time and collect reports, provide reports and such. So looking forward to meeting the command staff out there this Thursday. And then finally, on December 16th, if you didn't have an opportunity to attend, I don't remember who was all there, but the new Firehawk is now at Prado Camp. It'll be a great resource for the area in the event that we have any large-scale incident, whether it be anything related to fire or anything that we need with respects to maybe even recon. We have several washes that all come through Chino that dump into the basin, 3 of them specifically. And so swiftwater rescue is a real issue here. But any other of those needs that helicopter is able to help provide support to this community, so it's a great tool for us. 2 other things real quick is that it was a great pleasure to see Lieutenant Kelleher tonight here. I really, even from the fire side, appreciate the council's support of the law enforcement, because when you support them, you support us as well. We do a lot of our work together. Without them, there would be a lot of things that we wouldn't be able to engage in. So we appreciate that support. And then for Councilmember Lucio, thank you for sharing about wrestling. I can tell you firsthand, as a kid who grew up in Bell Gardens in the East LA area, I boxed out of the boys. It was the boys club at the time. It's a boys and girls club now, but it's programs like that that keep kids that have a potential to go wayward on the straight track and opportunities to really see and do good things. So appreciate that, and I'll be supporting that. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. We are very blessed in our community. I'm glad you brought up the wrestling. We also have our boxing club that has helped a tremendous number of kids in Chino stay out of the gangs and have an alternative to their lives. We are going to be adjourning in memory of Riverside County Sheriff Deputy Darnell Calhoun. I think the sheriff last night on the news really made some very important comments, and that is, it seems like today's society encourages the criminal element to fight the police. We have to demand that this stops. We have to demand at our state level, even at our country level, that we get support of police back, and that we make killing and harming police officers a felony. Get that back, get mandatory jail sentences back. This insanity has to stop. When you need help, you don't call a criminal, you call a policeman. A policeman has to feel safe in his own community. And now with what's gone on, the loss of Riverside in the last 2 weeks is just, it's beyond belief. It's beyond belief. How do you go to work every day and not know if you can just do a traffic stop or respond to a call? The sheriff said the only way they can avoid things like this happening is if they don't respond to a call. That's not an option. That's not what the police are for. The police are there to respond to calls and to help us. We've got to support our officers, and we've got to demand that there's criminals that should be punished, and they've got to know there's going to be punishment for this kind of activity. So with that, we are adjourning in memory of Deputy Darnell Calhoun. Our next regular council meeting will be held February 7th at 7 o'clock with closed session starting at 6 if necessary. We are adjourned.
Well,